Welcome. This is the Brookline School Committee meeting, and we are meeting on October 10th, 2024. You might notice a few missing faces. Dr. Guillory is a little under the weather, so he's going to join us remotely. And Andy and Val are both unavailable tonight for different reasons, but so it'll be the 7 of us. Go team. Okay. So let's start with the consent agenda. I will move the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mariah. Any comments or questions? Helen?
Just a quick comment to thank the teachers who are willing to go on these trips with students. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we appreciate it.
So for those who are wondering what trips those are, ones we're voting on tonight are students are going to Brown University in November to tour the campus, and Pierce 7th grade group is going to Nature's Classroom in Charlton, Mass. For a couple of days, November 6th to 8th. Okay, we'll take a vote. Jesse?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. Karen, we're going to go to student report. It's all yours.
Thank you so much. So October continues to be a busy month for BHS. Really, we're all getting back in the thick of it, as we once knew, taking tests, taking exams, doing papers, that's really, we're all getting back into the grind of it. And so I think two important things that I want to highlight that occurred recently at the beginning of October and at the end of September were our back to school night and our International Parents Night. So BHS hosted its annual Back to School Night on Thursday, September 29th. So parents and guardians had the opportunity to go to BHS to take in their child's classes, follow their child's schedule. Almost a return to school experience, if you will, which, for my parents at least, that was something that they hadn't done in 30 years. So it was something that they really appreciated. And then on Tuesday, so just 2 nights ago, BHS also hosted its annual International Parents Night. So that's for the parents of international students, students who came, from other countries. They had the opportunity to do the same thing from 6:30 to 7:30. They got to listen to Miss Katie Frost-Woolette, who runs the ELE program at our high school. Just talk about what the program was like, what she was trying to get out of it for international students. I can say that, having served as one of BHS's ambassadors last year, those are a group of students who are tasked to help international students acclimate to the BHS culture. I can say that it's a very, very important event. And it's a very, very worthwhile event. I know I've heard from several international students. Quarter one ends actually for Brookline students. It's coming up soon. I bolded it, kind of my subconscious seeping in, letting me know that I have to step up my game. But IPRs are going to come out tomorrow, October 11th. So students and parents or guardians will have the opportunity to hear their teachers' feedback on their academic performance, their performance in class, make any necessary changes. And then the quarter one, the first quarter for BHS, ends November 6th. And those report cards for quarter one will be uploaded to the Aspen portal about November 15th. So we have just less than 1 month left in our first quarter. Quarter done through the school year, and even more for seniors. On a more serious note, 3 days ago was the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th attack in Israel. So BHS counselors and social workers were available to any students who needed emotional, any kind of support, following that. The attack still has ramifications for a lot of students at BHS. It's still left sort of a lasting imprint for many students. And so, any students who had, who wanted to discuss anything with clinical staff, with social workers, with administrators, with deans, they could do so, and they could receive drop-in support in the MLK room. And then just to conclude the report on a much lighter note, I would say, 2 of BHS's most important clubs, APAC, which is the Asian and Pacific American Club, and the Latinx Club, the Latinx and Allies Club, marked 2 important events. The Latinx Club held their Spirit Week this week. So for each of the days, Monday through Friday, so it's not over yet, they held different themed events designed to promote sort of the Latinx and Hispanic heritage culture in BHS. So Monday, white-themed outfits. Tuesday, football jerseys. Wednesday was face paint your flag. And then tomorrow is Latinx Club hoodies. So the Latinx Club and Allies will be wearing those hoodies just to show support, just to raise awareness of the Latinx Club. It's one of the most important clubs at BHS. And then APAC, 2 days ago or 1 day ago, yesterday on October 9th, they held a mixer in the freshman building that was designed to sort of bridge the gap between underclassmen or 9th graders and upperclassmen and sophomores. I can tell you that from personal experience, when I was a 9th grader, it was often very, very difficult to, join clubs, to sort of be part of that BHS experience, really just due to the physical distance between the 9th grade building and the rest of the high school. So, this mixer was quite an important event and really helped sort of build community, I would say, for all Asian American identifying students and non-Asian American identifying students at the high school. So that is the student report for October.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions? Helen?
Well, I got a kick out of your mixer. That brought me back to freshman year in college. But another sort of small piece of history, when I was PTO president at the high school before I got on the school committee, I actually started the International Night. We didn't have it before that. And I felt there were so many parents who had no clue about our school system, how it works, the American system of education. So it just has kept on going, so I'm really pleased to hear that.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, or you're welcome to go and get that homework done. It's up to you. Okay, we're going to have the superintendent's report. I see Dr. Guillory is remote and online.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. And again, my sincerest apologies for not being able to be there with you in person. But I figure that the crud that I have is better to keep as local as possible rather than share it out much. So with that being said, we are going to walk through the superintendent's update. Thank Karan for his presentation. October is National Principals Month, and so we want to take this opportunity to celebrate our outstanding school principals. At Baker School, Saeed Ola, Beep, Margaret Eberhardt, BHS, Anthony Meyer, Driscoll, David Euclid, FRR, Candace Whitmore, Lawrence, Vanessa Bolello, Lincoln, Brian Denizio, Pierce, Jamie Yadoff, Roland Hayes, Asa Sevelius, and Runkle School, Donna Finnegan. And again, October is National Principals Month. As a brief update on our MTSS literacy initiative, we just want to share that DESE we were previously identified as having significant disproportionality amongst our Black and African American students with specific learning disabilities. And while we no longer have that designation from DESE, we recognize that disproportionality remains in our system, and we are building a multi-tiered system of support that will become our shared approach. And what that allows is for a comprehensive framework for support for all students, a process designed to maximize student achievement, a method to deliver effective interventions earlier and efficiently. The focus is on outcomes and a commitment to student progress and well-being. And you'll continue to hear about that as we continue to go through our literacy selection process, but also as we share out various reports. Because this is a long-term commitment that's deep and far-reaching, this year we're starting with grades K through 5 and focusing on literacy. We're going to make every effort to align this work with all of our district priorities as defined in our strategic plan and the day-to-day work of teaching and learning within our schools. And so for the 24-25 school year is to establish district and school-based MTSS teams, again, multi-tiered systems of support, develop a shared understanding of Tier 1 literacy instruction, and self-assess our current state regarding academic, behavioral, and SEL supports in literacy. To meet these goals, we will engage in a variety of formats of MTSS and literacy professional learning and ensure the input and involvement of all of our PSB community members. As we try out and build out our MTS framework processes and methods this school year, we will be setting ourselves up for success with other content areas and grade levels in the following years. We want to share a staffing update. As many of you may know, we're still searching for a permanent Senior Director of Clinical Services and Non-Discrimination Initiatives. And while that position, some of you may remember this was Dr. Maria Lataz that held this position as the last permanent person, was still searching for a permanent hire in that role. And so in the interim, we are bringing in our Becky Schuster, who will be providing some on-site support and consultation to ensure that these initiatives continue moving forward. And so Becky will be working a limited number of hours, but it's coming in to really focus on our discrimination aspects that need to be taken care out of OSS. For the past 9 years, Becky served as the Assistant Superintendent of Equity for the Boston Public Schools. And prior to that, she was the Director of Training at the MCAD, or Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, for 15 years. And under her leadership, Boston's strategies to prevent and address incidents of bias-based and sexual misconduct were recognized as a model for the Commonwealth and the nation. And so we want to welcome Becky Schuster to the public schools of Brookline in this intermittent capacity. Health and wellness, the PSB Health and Wellness policy was updated last year, as many of you know. This year, the Wellness Committee will review how well the policy is being implemented and will identify focus areas to continue improving compliance across the district schools. PSB will continue our collaboration with a school wellness coach for DESE's school wellness coaching program implementing initiatives for the 24-25 school year. The coaching will help us complete an assessment of the implementation of PSB's written wellness policy, as well as the creation of action plans and identifying priorities based on assessments. As always, we just want to share publicly that we are certainly working to build initiatives, building-based initiatives to ensure all students have a sense of belonging within the unique culture of their home school. And as a reminder, our special education students who are placed in programs outside of the district are valued members of their homeschool communities. And to ensure that children are offered equal opportunities to participate in sports, non-academic, extracurricular, and after-school programs as their district peers, the communications from the child's homeschool will continue. Our focus on social emotional learning. Again, this is sort of an annual reminder. At this point, we continue to partner with Care Solace to support the well-being of students, staff, and their family members. Care Solace is a confidential care coordination service that can help you quickly find mental health or substance use treatment options matched to your needs regardless of circumstance. And Care Solace can be accessed in the following ways: 1-888-515-0595, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in any language. And then the caresolace.com/Brookline for a web access. This month, PSB will administer the Universal Social Emotional Screener to survey students in grades 3 through 12, except for families who opt out. This survey measures school belonging, supportive relationships, and emotional regulation skills, pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings. For students in grades 6 through 12, the survey includes the PHQ-4, which is a brief screening tool for anxiety and depression. The survey does not measure or ask questions about engagement in risk-taking behavior, substance abuse, substance use, or safety. In addition to providing students with additional support, the information gathered through these surveys will be used to review and evaluate Brookline's SEL programming. So again, this is something I think you all are very familiar with, and we've seen this now a few years. The survey is available in a variety of languages: English, Spanish, Russian, Hebrew, Japanese, French, Korean, Arabic, and Chinese. And most students complete the survey in about 5 to 10 minutes. And that concludes the superintendent's remarks. I do also want to say a special thank you to our first and second grade teachers. For the previous 2 weeks, I was out visiting just about all of the first and second grade classrooms. I missed a few, and I was really impressed with the learning and engagement that I saw in our classrooms. And so kudos to the teachers and the paraeducators and all the school staff that are working so hard to ensure that our children are active and engaged in learning. So with that, that concludes the superintendent's report for tonight.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Dr. Guillory. Any questions, comments? Stephen? Sarah?
I always think it's good to discuss things further to make sure that there's understanding around it. So when you were on your slide where you're talking about MTSS and you talked about disproportionate groups of students of color being in special education, it didn't say whether in the past we've had a larger percentage of students in special education or a smaller percentage. And the reason why I ask is because I think that you could see the issue two ways. You could say that if we have too many students of color in special education, maybe it feels a little bit like we're siloing off a group. Or you could say that if we have too few students, that it means that people aren't getting the support that they need. So because I didn't see that really explained, I was wondering if you could kind of shed some light on that. Thanks.
Yes, so great clarifying question. So on one hand, there was an overrepresentation of African American students. And more specifically, I think it was boys, and Lisa can chime in and give more clarity on that. But then there was also the concern of the under-identification of Asian students as well. So what the trend lines generally say, what's the percentage or proportion of students that match the district's demographics and students, and how few or how many students are identified within those populations or subpopulations as such. So we were flagged for an overrepresentation now of African American students. One of the things that Lisa led a team with OSS and I believe folks from OTL, and actually did some case study work in that area, and essentially did some blind reviews of materials to say if names were removed, would students still be identified? So I see Lisa on the screen, and I'll pass the mic over to her to provide a little bit more background on that.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Guillory. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. Well, for historical purposes, as Dr. Guillory just pointed out, the Office of Student Services, in response to this disproportionality report from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we created a disproportionality task force. And that school committee presentation actually is readily available in terms of the specifics of how that data was generated at the state level and how we approached our task force study. But we reviewed as a large team. We had representation from the Office of Teaching and Learning, from Medco, principals, teachers, and we looked at over 50 case studies of students and looked at the process of how students were referred to child study teams, to student assistance teams. We looked at response to intervention initiatives. We looked at professional development training for our staff doing actual testing. We looked at instructional practices, and we had developed an action plan for enhancing services to all students, whether they were eligible for special education or not. So that report may still be of interest because, as the narrative suggests, there is still great work to be done around student achievement, and so we are continuing that work despite the fact that we're no longer flagged by DESE. But I'd be happy to. I should confirm that the school committee report presentation from the spring of 2023 remains on the website for everyone's readability.
Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to first say that I thought that was, thanks for such a great superintendent's report. I thought, and just in general, I think all your superintendent's reports this year have been really terrific, Dr. Guillory. They've just been really substantive and useful. So thank you. Just a few specific questions. First, on the multi-tiered systems of support, I don't remember hearing about this in relation to literacy before. Is that new? Did I just miss that? Is this a change?
I don't know that it. I think Jody is there. It's not new. I think what we're doing is bringing attention, greater attention and focus to it, because it's an important component of the work.
Dr. Guillory is correct. We wanted both initiatives to go hand in hand. So we've been doing them concurrently.
Okay, so my linked question to that is is there any extension of the strategic plans thinking of how to apply MTSS is there any additional funding of MTSS that we need to think through? Because I know for year one of the strategic plan that we're in, I think the goal was something like 75%. No, I'm going to get it wrong. That there's some specific goal of the extension of MTSS, but it wasn't for the learning goal wasn't literacy related. It was CST related. So is there some additional rollout of MTSS that has to happen for this to work, or is this just an adjacency that you can realize because it's already sitting there?
It's an adjacency that we can realize, Stephen, because it is already there. We are partnered with NTC, who's New Teacher Center, who is helping us do the work thanks to a generous philanthropic grant that they had received. So any cost to the district is minimal.
Okay, that's great. Really briefly also, on the finding that we no longer have significant disproportionality in SLD, I just want to know, I guess this is a Lisa question, when did we stop, when did DESE cease to find Brookline, when did we stop being significantly disproportional in their findings? Because I know that for them to require a change, that we had to be significantly disproportional in their findings 2 years in a row, and you can never find that on their website. But I know that we did have that finding. I just never know when we stopped being that way.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen. When I came aboard in August of 2022, the district had had that disproportionality finding for over 2 years. So that is why I initiated the task force as a corrective action. So it preceded my arrival. And then given the initiatives that we put in place in 22-23, we, again, I don't want to minimize the significance of looking at student achievement for all students, but in terms of this specific finding, it was no longer, we had heard by July of 23 that we did not have that finding.
So as recently as the last school year, we no longer had a finding of significant disproportionality.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mariah?
Thank you. I want to second what Stephen said about the superintendent reports this fall. They have been really meaty, robust. I don't know what the right word is, but very content-filled. So thank you, Linus, for that. I have a question about the Director of Clinical Services interim position. How many hours a week on average is the interim supporting that position?
Lisa, you're on mute.
While you're getting off mute, I'll ask the second half. Is the job currently posted?
Yes.
Okay.
We posted the position for the third time this fall, and we have now expanded the search by posting the position on Indeed and some additional online recruitment sites. So fingers crossed. Ms. Schuster is giving us 5 to 12 hours a week. And actually, I met with her today, and she has some important ideas for us to consider in terms of recruitment. So I'm optimistic about that as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'd just like to put a plug in for the wellness plan and Tricia Laham and the work she did. I happen to be on that task force, but just to remind people that we actually were recognized as a model plan. And so we're looking forward to implementing it this year, but there was a lot of work that went into it, but we were recognized for it. And so congratulations to that group.
Sorry, Suzanne, can I ask a question about that? Or Dr. Guillory,
I think the slide said, and you said, the wellness committee is going to be doing something. Oh, last year we updated, or you updated the wellness policy. Now the committee's going to come back. Who's on that committee? Just curious what the,
Yeah,
who
well, I'm
comprises
not
it.
sure I can name everybody.
Well, you don't have to name them, but like, is it like parents and some
Carl and
staff? and-
Asha, there, some community people are on it. Who else? School committee, remember Tricia heads it up,
Yeah, Tricia
So-
heads it up, Sasha.
Sasha.
The food services.
Food and health and wellness department.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Like, is Carlin
Yes,
on?
Carlin's on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I should know everybody because I put in
And
a lot of
I really
hours.
didn't actually, I didn't
Good,
mean
you're
sort of
on.
names, just generally
Oh, yeah.
characteristics.
Yeah, and we do have parents and guardians on as well.
Awesome, great, thank you.
And they're open meetings if you want to come. You're welcome to come. Okay, thank you, Dr. Guillory. Rest up. And he's still going to stay on, so thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. What a full house we have. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you. It's going to be great to hear your voices. I appreciate that. We typically have 15 minutes set aside for public comment. We understand there's eagerness for people to speak, and that's great. And so we're going to extend it to a half hour. We have 15 people signed up. So we're asking you to do like 2.5 minutes. If you can do less, that's fine. If someone has already said what your message is going to be, you can just say, ditto that, or I agree with that, and you can then give your time to somebody else. When you speak, come up to the podium where Betsy is and speak into the mic. You may want to hold the mic because you need to speak right into it. Show him, Betsy. Thank you. You did that very well. And if you would state your name and your affiliation, I mean, if you have a child in the school, or if you are a student, what school you go to, what grade you might be in, anything else you think might be helpful us to know. Okay.
Suzanne, excuse me, sorry. So I had emailed Andy and you earlier, but kind of just right before the meeting. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just ask. So 2 meetings ago, Andy announced that we were going to have a change in practice
Right.
and limit comment to 15 minutes.
Right.
Precisely for the reason that sometimes there's a full house and we love public comment, but for various reasons,
Mm-hmm.
it was going to emulate what the select board does. So I'm just curious what the thinking
Yep,
is.
that's a good question.
We just took that on.
Yep, no, we deliberated about that, and we decided that we would have it all at once, because it's all the same topic, and sometimes at select board, they'll have different topics, and they can break it up that way. And also because we have such a large crowd, it would really be helpful to everybody if we had the crowd all at once. I mean, that we go and get that done, so that half of you don't have to stay. I mean, you're welcome to stay as long as you want, of course, but if you don't know when you're going to be speaking for that second group, that would be hard. People need to get home, the children need to get home. So we made a deliberate decision that we would hear everybody for the full half hour now.
Okay.
Okay?
How do you know what the topic is?
Oh,
With all due respect, okay, I didn't connect emails to the list of public speakers, so.
I had asked folks when they wrote, just so I could get a sense of what they were speaking about, so we would know all together. And then I think also the school committee was considering that because it's an item that's on the agenda this evening, that we didn't want to hear from people after the agenda item.
Okay.
So.
okay. So we will begin. Betsy, you want to?
FISA's first, then we'll have Ismail, Del Dayem, and then Sophia Ismail.
So there is Betsy will put on the timer, so you can see it counting down. I mean, don't get nervous, but it's just to help us to keep the flow going. So we appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? All right, great. Thank you. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for extending it and bringing it all together for 30 minutes. So hello, Faiza Khan, a mother of 4 Muslim PSP students who has spent 12 years, 24 holy days exactly, of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha celebrations, enduring stress and a feeling of non-belonging in this very town. Many of these years, the stress was triple and quadruple fold because 3 or all 4 of our kids were fasting for the holy month of Ramadan. Eid is the first day of the new month after this holy month, and we are allowed to resume eating during daylight hours, which calls for celebration. For each day that should have been joyous, we had to decide between our religion, culture, and academics. How did this dilemma dilute the importance of Eid in our hearts and minds, and how has it impacted our views of our religion? We'll never know. Why does our faith tradition seem less valued than those observed as Category 1 holidays? We all know. Brookline's Muslim students, representing 19 different ethnicities, often feel isolated due to the lack of educators they can relate to. Recognizing Eid as a Category 1 holiday would signal a commitment to equal recognition of Muslim families, students, and educators, and foster a more inclusive and equitable education system. This recognition would make Muslim students feel more included and increase the chances of attracting a more diverse pool of educators, something you are always looking for, and which is crucial for a truly inclusive and equitable education system. Equity is not in numbers. It's about fairness and justice. It's about ensuring that each person and group has the same opportunities and resources to succeed regardless of their background. People in position of power, as yourselves, must keep the biases in check. Please ask yourself if your holiday is being recognized on the PSB calendar, because ours is not, before you decide for the Muslim students in Brookline. Equity comes in finding solutions and not disregarding or setting aside a community's needs for another day. The school committee found solutions to provide Category 1 holidays for other communities. Please do the same for us in the true spirit of fairness and equity. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Hi, everyone. Is that close enough? My name is Ismail Abdel-Dayam. My family and I have called Brookline home for 14 years. I live with my wife and 2 children in Precinct 2. We are a Lawrence family, and we have a son in the high school. First of all, thank you for taking up this important issue of making it a Category 1 holiday. I wanted to use my time tonight to familiarize you with the 2 major Muslim holidays, or Eids, and tell you a little bit about what they are and what they mean to many of us. The first Eid, Eid al-Adha, meaning the festival of sacrifice, takes place during the week of the annual pilgrimage to Mecca, which commemorates the life and actions of the Prophet Abraham. During these holy days, Muslims around the world seek forgiveness and atone for their sins in much the same way as our Jewish neighbors do on Yom Kippur. And in the same way that Easter is a time for Christians to contemplate the central act of Christianity, or the sacrifice of Jesus, Eid is a time for Muslims to contemplate the sacrifice of Abraham, who is in fact the central figure of Islam. Muslims honor this day with early morning congregational prayers, by sharing meals with their family and friends, and through acts of charity. The second holiday, Eid al-Fitr, marks the end of Ramadan, the Islamic month of fasting. For 30 days, Muslims abstain from food and drink from sunrise to sunset, and yes, that includes water. My son actually has a t-shirt that he wears during Ramadan that says, nope, not even water. So, needless to say, this can be a very challenging month for our kids. Having fasted during high school in America, I know firsthand, it's hard for our kids to show up for practice after a long day of fasting, or sitting to take your AP exams with a dry mouth, or staying up to write that paper when all you want to do is catch a couple hours of sleep. Our kids work really hard during Ramadan. They burn the candle on both ends so they don't have to choose between doing their best at school and practicing their faith. It takes self-discipline and sacrifice. It's a major achievement for our kids, and Eid al-Fitr is a celebration of that achievement. These kids really put in the work and they show up, and I hope that we can show up for them. Eid is a joyous time for our kids, and what a powerful thing it would be for them to share that joy with their friends, just as they share in the joy of Christmas and Hanukkah, and to feel that their faith is valued by their community. 1 out of every 4 people in the world celebrates Eid. And as you can see, so many of our families in Brookline, in our Brookline community do too. Brookline has always been a leader in education. Let's not be behind the curve on this. Let's join districts in Massachusetts like Cambridge, Lexington, Wellesley, as well as many other districts around the country. my prayer tonight is that we as a Brookline community can always come together to celebrate and share in the joy of each other's holidays and traditions. Thank you so much.
So next we have Sophia Ismail. And then after Sophia, it'll be Isain Lecky.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia Ismail, and I've been a student at Pierce, Baker, and now I'm a junior at Brookline High School. And I want to share my experience as a student and how not having Eid off has affected me. At every PSB school I've attended, there's been unique traditions. At Baker, all fifth graders put on the annual fifth grade skit at the fall assembly and try each other's food at the annual Culture Fest. At BHS, everyone gets dressed up in their blue and red for the Powder Puff game. My family and I have had our own traditions as well. Since I was a little girl, I remember getting up early on Eid morning to get dressed up in my brand new traditional clothes, excited to see all my Muslim friends at the Eid prayer. My Baker best friend Nafi and I always went to the carnival outside the mosque after prayer and ate popcorn and cotton candy until we were sick. I would see so many kids from Brookline that I would wonder who was still at school. As I've gotten older, Eid has become a day of celebrating all of the discipline that I practiced over the month of Ramadan. When our energy is at a low point, especially during the school day during Ramadan as well, then missing a day after struggling with schoolwork the whole month is honestly inequitable. Every year when I come back, everyone asks me why I miss school, and I had to educate them about my holiday. But I've never had to ask any of my Jewish or Christian friends that question, because everyone had the day off, and everyone was aware that there was a holiday. Although Brookline is a very diverse community, that diversity is not reflected in our school calendar. I'm graduating in 2026, so this isn't for me. It's for the kids after me, for kids like my little sister. One day, hopefully soon, I hope that my identity as a proud Muslim and as a proud Brookline student can blend seamlessly together. And I hope that I don't have to keep the traditions that I have built with my family and with my school separate. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, members of the school committee and members of Muslim families and friends in Brookline. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Ihsan Lecky. I am a proud Brookline parent to 12-year-old Nora, and I am former candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives to represent our district. My daughter Nora will be entering 8th grade next year, and I stand before you to voice my strong support for recognizing Eid as a Category 1 holiday in the school calendar. Eid is a significant religious celebration for Muslims around the world, and by recognizing it as a Category 1 holiday, we embrace our town's values of inclusivity and respect, ensuring that Nora and many others won't have to choose between their education and their religious traditions. I understand concerns about opening the door to numerous holiday requests. However, acknowledging Eid is a step towards equitable representation. Our school calendar already reflects the holidays of various traditions, and adding Eid demonstrates our commitment to inclusivity. This is not about taking away from others, but about ensuring that all students feel seen and respected. We don't take away, we're expanding, we're adding more. I urge you to consider the positive impact this decision will have on our community as a whole, fostering an environment where diversity is celebrated. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Husna Abdurrahim. And after Husna will be...
Good evening, everyone. Salam alaikum. Peace be unto y'all. My name is Hasna Abdurrahim, and I'm in 6th grade. Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm here to talk about why it's essential to make Eid a school holiday for Muslim students like me and many others in our school. Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha are two really important holidays in Islam. They're like Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Hanukkah to others. These days, Muslims spend time with their families praying and celebrating. But right now, when Eid happens, we still have to go to school, and that can make it hard for Muslim students to enjoy these special days. There are 3 big reasons why we should have Eid as a holiday. 1, it makes everyone feel included. In our school, we learn about different cultures and backgrounds, and we're taught to respect everyone. By making Eid a holiday, we can show that we care about different cultures and religions. That makes up our school community. It makes Muslim students feel included and valued, just like when we celebrate other holidays. 2, it's fair for all students. Right now, Muslim students have to miss school to celebrate Eid, which means we have to miss essential lessons and sometimes fall behind. That's unfair because other students get time off for their essential holidays. By making Eid a holiday, we can celebrate with our families without missing schoolwork or falling behind. 3, it helps everyone learn about each other. Making Eid a holiday also helps everyone learn more about different cultures and traditions. It's a great way to teach our classmates what makes Eid unique and shows that our school respects everyone's traditions. This helps build understanding and friendship between students from different backgrounds. In conclusion, making Eid a school holiday would help Muslim students feel included, make things fair for everyone, and help them learn more about each other. I hope you will consider this idea to make Eid a school holiday and make this world a better place. Thank you for listening.
Next, we have Marina Radueva, and then it'll be Sadaf Kazmi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the time today. Actually, my little brother, Dalil Radev, was actually supposed to be here today to speak to all of you. Unfortunately, he's also caught that, turn of the season illness. Luckily, I'm here, and I'm almost as eloquent as he and Husna here, who are both 11 years old. But I just wanted to tell you guys really quickly about how about a week ago, my little brother came home from school with his best friend, and I heard them before I saw them, but they were super happy and they were having a great time until my mom came and asked them, when they're going to start their homework or if they've even done their homework, to which they gleefully replied that it's actually a Jewish holiday and that they don't have to go to school. So for the rest of the night, they continued their play date and they had a great time. Of course, we're all happy for them for that, but it didn't take very long for him to start wondering why the only holiday that he celebrates isn't as valued or respected in the fact that he doesn't get a day off to celebrate it. He doesn't celebrate Halloween, he doesn't understand Thanksgiving, he doesn't celebrate Christmas, and he doesn't really care about Valentine's Day, so it's really the only one that he actually, wants to celebrate and feels is magical. And growing up, Eid always fell in the summer for me. So I remember that magical feeling of waking up, of having the first meal and seeing my friends and, going to prayers with my family. And it kind of made me feel very sorry for him that he doesn't have that same childhood memory, that same magic, feeling created for him because, he has been at school for every time that Eid has fallen in his youth when he actually is fasting. So he wanted to be here today to tell you that story and hope that, this change can come about, that he might be able to join in with celebrations with his friends and tell his friends about his faith and, why this day is special to him. And finally join me and my family in making this moment magical for, not just young kids, but it's a family memory that we all spend together. It's very important to us. So thank you again for your time, and we all really appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. Okay to go ahead? Betsy? Yeah? All right, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sadaf Kazmi. I'm mother of a kindergartner and a third grader at Lawrence School. I'm also the product of Brookline Public Schools, having attended Lawrence myself from kindergarten through the 8th grade. When considering where to raise our children, my husband and I decided to move to Brookline for many reasons. However, two of the top reasons was the quality of the public schools, which I knew about firsthand, and also the diversity of the community, which has only increased since the time that I was a child. Growing up as a child of immigrants and as a racial and religious minority, I experienced a general sense of acceptance from my peers and the school staff, but I also experienced a tremendous amount of ignorance. My family is originally Pakistani, and nobody seemed to know where Pakistan was or what it even was. And when I mentioned that I didn't celebrate Christmas, people would ask if I were Jewish, and when I said I wasn't, the consistent response from students and staff was, "Well then, what are you?" When Muslim holidays rolled around as a child, I felt the burden of educating classmates, teachers, and school administration about my faith, traditions, celebrations, and then to seek out accommodations for my holidays, to make up missed work and lessons, and to reschedule exams missed in observance of major religious holidays. And while I loved growing up here, I really do hope that my children have a different experience in some ways than I did. I do not want my children to have the same experience when it comes to this level of understanding and diversity. I've grown into an adult who is proud of my heritage and my faith and has a strong sense of belonging in this community that I grew up as a part of. And I'm also trying to instill the same pride and confidence in my own children. However, my kindergartner said to me a couple weeks ago, "Mom, we shouldn't talk about the fact that we learned Arabic in Sunday school with people at school who aren't Muslim, right?" And frankly, that made me really, really sad. What is it about her experience 1 month into Lawrence School that makes her say such a thing? Because she didn't say that in preschool. Making Eid the Category 1 holiday is a step towards properly acknowledging the diversity of this community and not making the holidays of one of the world's largest faiths a side note or something that is raised only by the most confident and engaged members of our school community. This benefits not just Muslim children, but the broader town by educating all of the community members about our neighbors and the world around them so that they don't grow up into the adults that I experienced who ask questions like, "Well then, what are you?" And while I understand there are concerns about the inclusion of an additional Category 1 holiday and what it'll do to the school calendar, I believe that there are really creative ways to solve for this concern. And I also think that the real question to ask is whether we as a town believe in reinforcing principles of diversity and inclusion in our schools. And I truly hope that the answer to that question is yes. Thank you.
We have two students next, Anna and Nora. And after they speak, it'll be Ashard Siddiqa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alnusia Rajbar, and I am a sophomore at Brookline High.
Hi, my name is Nora, and I'm also a sophomore at Brookline High.
Today, we are here to discuss to you why we believe Eid al-Fitr and should be recognized as a Category 1 holiday. Just to clarify, there are two Eids, Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, but today I will only be referring to one. To provide some context, Eid is a deeply significant holiday for Muslims around the world, marking the end of Ramadan, the holy month in which Muslims fast from dawn to sunset for 30 days. This fast is not just a physical challenge, but also a time for reflection, spiritual growth, and empathy for those who are less fortunate. It is a time when we come together with families and communities to celebrate these values of compassion and generosity. Eid is a holiday filled with love, joy, and togetherness. We spend it in prayer, giving charity, dancing, exchanging gifts, and sharing festive meals. It is truly a time to connect with our family and celebrate our faith. For Muslim students in Brookline, Eid is not just a day off. It is a sacred and cherished time and one of the most important holidays in Islam. However, as things currently stand, Eid is classified as a Category 2 holiday. This means while there is no homework assigned on that day, students are still expected to attend school, which can create significant challenges for those who observe the holiday.
By making Eid a Category 1 holiday like Easter, Christmas, or Rosh Hashanah, we can give students the opportunity to fully participate in the religious and cultural traditions without the added stress of having to catch up on missing work. This change would also promote educational diversity in a meaningful way.
Why is this important? When schools recognize and accommodate the religious holidays of all students, it fosters an inclusive environment where every student feels seen and respected. It acknowledges that students come from diverse backgrounds with a wide range of cultures, religions, and traditions. For Muslim students, allowing them the space to fully celebrate Eid without the fear of falling behind academically shows that the school values and respects their cultural identity.
This recognition is not just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of promoting educational diversity and equity. When the schools accommodate and celebrate diverse traditions, it strengthens the sense of belonging and community among all students. The sense of belonging is crucial for a positive school experience, as students who feel supported and respected are more likely to thrive both academically and emotionally. On the other hand, when students are forced to choose between their education and their cultural or religious practices, it can create unnecessary stress, feeling of exclusion, and even resentment.
By making Eid a Category 1 holiday, Brookline Public Schools would be taking an important step toward creating an environment that supports the diverse needs of its student body. It was signaled that the school recognizes the value of all cultures and religious traditions, especially of a religion that makes up a significant portion of our town.
When we support the traditions of one group, we support the well-being and success of all students. Let's work together to make sure that every student, no matter their background or beliefs, can celebrate their traditions with pride and without compromise. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ashad Siddiqa. I've been a Brookline resident for 24 years. 2 of my children have done full of public school of Brookline, and I have a third one who's a 10th grader in high school. I immigrated to America about 30 years ago, and out of which 24 years I've called Brookline my home. And I always believed and experienced America to be magnanimous, kind, accepting everywhere. Having said that, as in the past 24 years, diversity has grown in Brookline. And when we moved here, it was a pretty random selection. Hey, it's close to work, let's move to Brookline. And then we realized, oh, it's diverse. It's got good schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And diversity, as everyone has mentioned, has increased. Brookline, public schools of Brookline always states that it is dedicated to creating and maintaining an educational and work environment that values diverse backgrounds of all people. They desire to provide safe environment that allows students and employees equal access and opportunities in line with the American dream. Making Eid as a Category 1 holiday is in line with those objectives. Muslim students carry a difficult choice, right, today, and the numbers grow. As I've said, diversity is increased between worship or should I attend school. We miss out on 2 days, right? Oh, we are supposed to attend 180 days. Oh, we attend 170 days, 178. And you miss out on curriculum, even though it's Category 2, no homework. You ask my kids, oh, we have to catch up anyway, but they miss the instructions. I think people have discussed various solutions. I don't want to go too much into it. Hey, can we, and I'm going with all the other school districts around the country which has accommodated this as the population of Muslim students, diversity has increased. By eliminating one of the Category 1 holidays. That's one of the solutions I think Lexington and Wellesley did. Or collapsing conferences. That way we don't extend the school year, which everyone is sensitive to. And some other details which I'll let the school committee and all your members to come up with it. I think there are a lot of brilliant minds here who can come up with solutions. But again, school districts all over the country are moving to recognize and celebrate major holidays in their demographic population. So why doesn't Brookline do that and not be a follower, be a leader? Thank you.
Next is Hajar Delshad, and then after that will be Rafeh Ali.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Hagar Delshad. I'm a parent of a Baker student, and my high school student, Sophie, spoke earlier. I want to thank you for the time and thank you for extending the public comment period because, as you can see, we're a sizable population, and I hope that you'll give some consideration to adding one or both Eids as a Category 1 holiday for Brookline schools. I want to read to you some of the language that's on the Brookline Public Schools website, and I want you to imagine reading it as someone whose holidays are not honored by the school and see how it sounds from that lens. According to the website, the PSB is dedicated to creating and maintaining an educational work environment that values diverse backgrounds and provides students and employees equal access and opportunities in the academic and other educational support programs. This applies to all acts related to school activities or school attendance under the jurisdiction of the superintendent. Dr. Guillory's message on the first week of school stated that we must commit to equity and inclusion, and we must be proactive in identifying and dismantling barriers to success, and we must build a culture of care and respect. What other way could we show respect and honor to a group of students that are represented here besides the many who are not here by honoring a holiday that they consider so dear to them and is so meaningful, that provides access for everyone else in the community to learn about the holiday and understand it's important to us. It allows also for us to attract more diverse population of educators and staff. There are currently about 3 Muslim educators in the entire district, and as you can see, we have more than 3 students here, so the ratio is really imbalanced. If we were to attract and retain educators who identify as Muslim, that would help all of the students and everyone in the school feel more included and represented. As you know, representation is just as important as the education that we do deliver. And we are hopeful that we can partner with you in finding a way to incorporate at least one of the holidays with various ways that we can without extending the school calendar. I know everyone is cognizant that we don't want to be in school until July, and of course we don't either. It is hot, nobody wants to be in school, we want to travel, all those things. But our children deserve the same ability to celebrate their holidays just as your children do. And I hope that you can hear this message loud and clear today. And just as my daughter said, she'll be graduating in 2026. Maybe she will get to celebrate one holiday as a Category 1 in all of her 12, 13 years as a Brookline student. But again, it's been really too late for her all these years. Hopefully her sister will get to enjoy that. Thank you.
I've kept this one brief, so I will give the rest of my time to the next person after me. My name is Rafe Ali, and I am a senior at Brookline High. Eid al-Fitr is my favorite day of the year. It's a reward for disciplining myself in fasting during Ramadan. It's full of parties, music, and games. And as a Muslim student at BHS, I am forced to choose every Eid between celebrating the day with my family and friends and going to school. The choice is always to celebrate, but there's a distinct downside to this. When I choose to celebrate, to embrace my culture and end a month of fasting with food and laughter, I also miss out on schoolwork, valuable instruction, and am forced to play catch-up. I am effectively penalized. On days when I have major tests, I must take on the extra stress of juggling newly assigned work in school, as well as making up whatever test I missed. A student should not have to choose between honoring their faith and prioritizing their education. Secondly, as a student, I feel disrespected by the school's refusal to acknowledge my faith as legitimate cause for holiday. I'm required to justify and defend one of the most important days on my calendar. Finally, recognition of Eid as a holiday would lend Islam recognition in this town, something it is sorely in need of. Recognition of Islam would elevate its status to that of other faiths in this town, as well as gaining Muslims some amount of respect or positive opinion, which we have been often denied. In a town and school system which prides itself on its commitment to diversity, inclusion, and accommodation for a range of cultures and faiths, there should be a space for Islam as well. Thank you.
Next, we have Ashad Ahmed in the room.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? I'm going to give a slightly different perspective. Firstly, my name is Arshad Ahmed. I've been in Brookline for the last, 15 years now, and I have 2 kids. They both go to Lawrence. Slightly different perspective. The simple point I'm going to make is that there has been a demographic shift in Brookline over the past 15 years or so since I moved here. And I've not seen any study done on how many Muslims actually live in Brookline. So I've pulled some census data, and I've also looked at the assessors list and made some calculations around country of origin and who might be a Muslim, who might not be. A rough estimate is anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 Muslims live in Brookline, representing roughly about 5% of the population, 4 to 5%. Sounds low, but it's not an insignificant number. And so the school policies should reflect this new reality and new diversity and new demographics that we're dealing with. And this is going to change further. I mean, as the population growth of the Muslim community is much higher than other communities, so over the next several years, this is going to change quite a bit. If you compare with Cambridge, the Muslim population is actually almost double. So it seems like they've changed, but then as a percentage of the total population is still around 5%. So we're almost there. Cambridge, Massachusetts. Compared to Brookline, Cambridge has a much higher Muslim population. So that's the reason why people cite that as the reason why they shifted. But as a percentage, it's very similar to Brookline. If you look at other communities, such as Lexington and Wellesley, the percentage of Muslim population is very low. It's 2% of the population, but they have shifted. So that's my question to you, is other communities are shifting. They're seeing this trend. I think Brookline needs to see this trend as well. I've made this difficult choice over the past decade or so of not going to the mosque for Eid prayers because of school. And so we hope that this choice is not there anymore, that we are able to go and celebrate Eid when we can. So would really appreciate this request. Thank you.
We have 3 remote speakers. Our first one is Raya Khan. Raya, if you want to turn on your camera, we'll be able to see you. Go right ahead.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Raya Khan, and I am a BHS graduate, now at my second year at UMiami. I'm home right now because I just had to evacuate due to Hurricane Milton, and I'm on Zoom because I just took a midterm. So despite all the craziness, I'm here because it's really important to me that I get to talk about why I think Eid should be a Category 1 holiday. So I'm Muslim, and I'm very proud of who I am, and I'm very proud of my identity. And that's thanks to my wonderful parents, family, friends, the many communities I'm a part of, and the way that I grew up. So in middle school, I moved from Houston, Texas to Brookline. And at my elementary school in Texas, the whole school always had the day off for Eid. That's how I grew up. I got my holiday off just like everyone else had theirs, and I never had to think twice about it. You know, looking back, I realized that it ensured I would feel just as valued as my peers. And truly, I can't even begin to explain how formative and important growing up like that was for me. You know, when you're a little kid and even when you're a teenager, it feels so important to fit in. And personally, I wanted to fit in and feel special, which I know seems impossible, but it's something that many, many kids want. And I'm grateful that I spent my childhood at a school where that was possible for me. You know, I remember the day before Eid, all my friends were so excited about having the day off, and then I was so excited about getting to tell them about my plans, you know, showing them pictures of my outfits, and it was fun, and I didn't feel singled out. Instead, I felt special and accepted, and I had a real sense of belonging. So, you know, when I was a student at BHS, I was a part of the newspaper, and in my senior year, I was the DEI managing editor, and DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion. So I spent a lot of my time having conversations with students and teachers and my newspaper advisors, who are great, by the way, and staff about how to support and how to make sure students at BHS felt a real sense of belonging too. So I'm here now telling you that giving everyone the day off for Eid does that for your Muslim students. I can speak from experience. It sends them the message that they are a valued member of this town and that they are a part of the fabric of our community. So thank you so much for having me speak, and I hope you take my experience and everyone that's spoken today into account when you make your decision.
Next, we have Sharif Aljendi.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be here in person because of like late work commitments. So I have been living in Brookline for almost 9 years now, and the main reason I moved to Brookline is the great it's a great school district, and the reputation of being, you know, like a welcoming, diverse community. I have an older son who graduated high school. He's currently in college. and I have 3 children in the school system in Brookline. One of them goes to the Hay School, so when I drop him off every morning, I see the sign, all are welcome. It's a nice sign. I like it. But it is time to translate words into action. As I mentioned, I have an older son who graduated Brookline High School, and it has always been an issue during Eid, like others described. Part of Eid is to wake up early, go to the mosque, do the prayer, and then go back home, celebrate, mostly with families and with friends. And it's a feast-like celebration. There is always food, music, etc. For him, it was hard because when he grew up and I asked him if, like what he would like to do for Eid, his answer is he doesn't know, because if he missed school, he will miss work. His homework will be doubled. Like I still remember his words. He said, "I feel I'm being punished for missing that day." If we try to split it, like wake up early in the morning, because it's like a sunrise prayer, then it means he's waking up earlier than usual just to go to prayer and then rush to school. So there is, for a child, there is no fun in that. So it has always been this dilemma of like, or why can't I celebrate it? Why am I being different? And this is the main topic here. Like, children should not feel that they are being different. Especially, and let's be like, frank about this, especially about being a Muslim child, because as Muslims, I'm talking about myself and a lot of people I know, we feel like many times we're being almost targeted here, from like very high up, like top positions in the country, and it trickled all the way down to some children. So celebrating Eid seems like like a simple step or not a huge step, but it is a huge step, because when children in school have friends and they start learning, oh, we like, kids like each other, children like each other, we celebrate we have a day off of the religious holiday, we understand the religious holidays. It brings children together, which means it will bring communities together, which also will go with like, Brookline being diverse and welcoming to all. It's hard for me to speak here, and basically I'm defending something that I think should have been done years ago. I read some of the minutes about from a meeting in August about like the concerns raised about why celebrate this. I mean, I'm talking only for 2 minutes. I'm not gonna respond obviously to all of this, and some of my like the parents here responded to some. But this has already been discussed in other school districts in Massachusetts and outside Massachusetts. And all of them were able to find easy solutions, and now they have Eid as a Category 1 holiday. So it's simple. If there is a will, there is a way. So I'm respectfully asking you to start by recognizing this as a Category 1 holiday, pending having a policy to how to enforce. Thank you very much.
And our last speaker is Isabella Gafour.
Hi, everyone. It's a lot of pressure being last, but I'll do my best. I graduated from BHS in 2019. I attended Brookline schools from pre-K until end of high school. And as so many people have just discussed, I think we can all, understand how important Eid is for us in the Muslim community. And like all of the other students that have spoken, I'd like to talk about my experience, specifically being a Muslim going to school in Brookline. In my experience, whenever I talked about Islam or Ramadan or Eid, it's not that people ever had anything rude or mean to say, it's just people genuinely had no idea what I was talking about when I spoke about fasting, about Eid, or just really anything within the Muslim tradition. And it felt pretty isolating every year when I had to sort of re-explain what all of the holidays were, why I might be out, and just sort of, all of the customs that I did with my family. Freshman year, I remember Eid al-Adha fell on a day in September, and I was really sort of going through a hard time at that moment. I was feeling really anxious and overwhelmed with the transition into high school. And when Eid rolled around, I remember my dad had to literally convince me to skip school. Usually, I know I would be super excited to have the opportunity to skip school, but I felt like I couldn't. And my dad had to really convince me to skip school to celebrate Eid with him and my brother, and we ended up having a lovely celebration, just the three of us. But it's hard to really enjoy that day when you know that you have a ton of responsibilities to go back to, and you're falling behind, and yeah, it's just not an ideal situation for any of us. And I know Eid is just 2 days out of the year. It often falls on the weekend. It often falls in the summer. Most of my life, it was during the summer. But those 2 days are really, really important to us. So it's seriously, I know people have said this before, but like truly picture yourself going to school on Thanksgiving or on Christmas. Like that's really how it feels for us. It's just super, it feels unnatural, and it feels like, it's not fair to what the holiday means for us. So thanks for listening, and thanks to everyone else who've shared their experiences. We hope you take this all into consideration.
So that concludes public comment, open public comment. I want to thank everyone for coming. We do listen, we don't respond during public comment. Those who have been here before know that. I see some heads shaking, but we really do listen, take notes, and we will have a conversation about this later tonight. So probably it's probably another hour away before we get to this topic. Gives you time to go home and plug in to Zoom on Big if you wish, or you are certainly welcome to stay as long as you would like. So thank you again. We really appreciate hearing from you. And, I have to give you all kudos because you really did do it in 2.5 minutes each. So thank you. That was impressive. So thank you very much. Okay. We are going to move on to the special town meeting warrant article. And do we have our guests here on Zoom? Okay. So we are going to hear to the petitioners about Article 19.
Are you ready for me to address the school committee?
I think we are, Scott. I think we're okay.
Okay.
Not Scott, Michael. Right?
Michael, second. Thank you.
Michael, yeah.
Yes. So we will stay within the time limits that were given to us. My name is Michael Burstein, and my colleague is Scott Gladstone. I think most of the members of the school committee know who we are. We're both members of town meeting. I'm a library trustee. I recently was chair of the trustees, although I am not anymore. And we did in fact file the warrant article to try to establish Jewish American Heritage Month as a much more official celebration in the town of Brookline. We actually would like to start by saying how great it was listening to the advocacy for inclusion and diversity and education that we just went through. And Scott and I want to make it clear that we actually completely support the Muslim community in their advocacy for Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr being holidays on the calendar. Because in a way, this is exactly what our own warrant article is all about. The United States State Department celebrates 10 heritage and history months. And we feel that the time has come for the town of Brookline to make a commitment to Jewish American Heritage Month as one of those months. This is not something that is out of line of what town meeting has done before. We actually modeled our article on the one that town meeting passed about Asian American and Pacific Islander Month 2 years ago. Scott and I were both in that town meeting. We both voted yes. And it's interesting, some of the things that people have asked us about at the advisory committee, at at the select board, that were in our article are things that were essentially identical from the language that was previously passed. So our goal with this warrant article is basically to help the town celebrate Jewish American history and Jewish American contributions, and to support the schools in their mission to educate and celebrate the diversity that we have in this town. We will admit, we point out in the description that our article is partly a response to the increase in anti-Semitism that we've seen in the past year, but that's not the only reason for the warrant article. As I mentioned, town meeting has voted for past previous types of heritage celebrations, Martin Luther King Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, AAPI month, and we actually see this as a continuing that tradition of town meeting resolutions in favor of celebrating diversity. As we say in the explanation for this resolution, which I will quote it, besides educating all people about Jews and Judaism being an effective bulwark against anti-Semitism, there is also an intrinsic value in celebrating the unique contributions of Jewish residents in Brookline as part of the mosaic of other faiths, ethnicities, and nationalities that make Brookline the vibrant and excellent community which we all enjoy. We support all efforts to educate about, celebrate, embrace, and celebrate every community within Brookline. The more, the better. This proposal is just one piece of that larger effort. Now, we know that the school committee, of course, has particular interest in the schools. And we know that the schools already acknowledge this month in the same way that the select board has acknowledged it each year. But we've taken a look and we've noted in many cases, these are prompted from outside or by others. Scott has gone to the select board I think for the past few years to remind the select board just before May about Jewish American Heritage Month and to make a statement. And in the context of the schools, we sent you a letter from a teacher at the Ridley School about her support for Jewish American Heritage Month and how helpful she would find this resolution. And I don't want to rehash all of those things, but I will note that in the one testimony from students in the Brookline schools who came to the advisory committee subcommittee meeting, they did talk about their own advocacy, what they did in order to try to make Jewish American Heritage Month more significant for their school and their community. And we would like to be able to support this. We feel a town meeting resolution would make a powerful statement. We're delighted to note that we were joined by unanimous votes of the advisory committee and the select board. The advisory committee voted 23 yeses and 1 abstention. The select board 4 yeses, 1 abstention to support our warrant article. And so again, our hope for you guys to understand the context of the schools is that having town meeting pass such an article will help support you, the school committee, and the teachers in the overall mission of the Brookline schools to promote diversity. I will see if Scott has anything he wants to add, but I will note if he doesn't that we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, thanks. Mindful of the time, I see there's only like 2 minutes left. One of the things that we heard from the couple of students from the FR school who addressed the advisory committee was that the first and only time they really learn about Jews and Judaism is when they learn about the Holocaust. And while there's a lot of value in that, it certainly is not the whole story. And the value of Holocaust education in fighting anti-Semitism and increasing understanding of people's differences has had limited success. So this is another route for the Brookline schools and the entire school community, the entire Brookline community, libraries, etc., to help people learn about who their neighbors are. And again, more knowledge means less misunderstanding. Hopefully leads to less hate and intolerance. And if this is a lesson that can be taught about Jewish Americans, it obviously has broad application across the board, particularly where there are Muslim brothers and sisters. And the last thing I'll say is it's ironic that when we brought this article, there was a comment from a town official worried about, what does it mean for the town to use its resources backing or supporting a religion? And town council's office said very clearly, not a problem, but just the asking the question was indicative of why we need this sort of education. Because people think they know who their Jewish neighbors are and what they're about, but they really don't. Not fully. I'm sure the people in the audience understand the feeling I'm talking about. And even many people in the Jewish community don't necessarily understand how all of their brothers and sisters feel about it. Judaism is not just religion. Judaism is a people. For instance, the Lakota people are a people with their own language and their own religion. They don't say, "Oh, it's I practice Lakotaism." They just practice the religion, and but it's not all who they are. There's a whole culture there. Same thing with Jews and Jewish Americans. Jews have their own unique languages. Hebrew is spoken by not just Jews, because it is also a national language, but Jews have unique languages: Yiddish, Ladino, Judeo-Arabic. I'm learning new ones all the time. There's just small snippets of the kinds of things that can be taught in the schools if we have a recognition that Jewish Americans not only make a huge contribution to our culture and to the society, but there's value just in understanding who our neighbors are. And I'll end there.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any public comment on this? We don't. Okay. Are there any questions for the presenters? For me? Okay. Wait, Sarah, did you have one for the presenters? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Maria.
Thank you for the presentation. Suzanne, my recollection was that we were going to write a statement and saying that we are doing this already, but we weren't necessarily going to vote on the warrant article itself. Is that?
That's my recollection.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check because it had possible vote on the.
It is possible, just in case we change our mind.
Okay.
That it's not expected that we would.
Okay. Very good.
That's why we say possible.
Okay.
People remember that conversation? Okay. Okay. Sarah. So, did you hear that? Scott and Mike, did you hear what we had said, how we discussed this before?
I did hear that. And we weren't necessarily looking for a vote of recommendation to go into the combined reports. We actually were interested in the doing of it, in you're seeing what we're trying to promote and actually taking some actions to advise the superintendent to actually make enhancements to the curriculum.
Gotcha.
And sorry, I'm going to jump because it's unless it's on this.
Go ahead.
I don't remember, sorry, what was the conversation, and because this is my first go-round with warrant articles, what was our conversation about why we would or wouldn't vote on this one or other ones?
Right.
Without
so
digressing too much, but just give me like a
right,
bumper sticker on school committee votes on warrant articles. Thank
So
you.
we usually try to vet the articles. We go through them. The Government Relations Subcommittee did that. And we come forward and say, these are the ones we think might be pertinent to us. Typically, there are very few that are directly connected to schools. And so when we took a look at this one, I believe the conversation was that we are doing this already in our schools, and that we would be willing to put forward a very short statement that said that is the case, but that we were not going to take a position and vote on this as a school committee, because it's actually not geared just towards schools. It's more of a town warrant article. Okay.
Also, Suzanne, schools aren't bound. It's not binding to us, even as a resolution.
Right,
So
it's not binding.
that was the other thing.
Right. Okay. Sarah, did you have a question, comment?
Yes, this is just, to the extent that this can be helpful. When I see number 5, where it suggests it will be resolved that the town meeting urges that the public schools of Brookline observe Jewish American Heritage Month by organizing activities in celebration. So, thinking as an educator, I looked at the sample lessons, which actually I'm so happy to see. That's a teacher that I've celebrated for many, many years. And so I'm just happy that her materials are getting out there as they help us all sort of think about what we're doing. But I want you to, in order to be really useful to the schools, I want you to think about what you mean by that when you say that. Do you mean that a 6th grade math teacher would make sure that they would have activities? Or do you mean that a building would make sure that there was something in celebration? I'm not looking for an answer tonight. I just want you to think about what it is that you're asking for.
Well, we can certainly give you an answer.
Right, but if that is a question that was directed at Scott and me, I will make the point that this is the exact language that appeared in the AAPI month resolution that was passed by a town meeting 2 years ago. So my feeling would be in general to say that we would expect something at the same level as any other celebration or education that is done for AIP a month or any other heritage month. Scott, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I mean, I would say just to specifically answer Sarah's question, it's obviously up to the central office and each building's principal as to what this means. Curriculum isn't as directive as I think as you know, curriculum is not as directive as you're suggesting. If math teachers move to do it, great. But as long as there's something so that Jewish Americans in the school can point at that and say, "Ooh, I was recognized," and non-Jewish Americans can say, "This Jewish American Heritage Month. I wonder." I say, "Well, look at this interesting poster with this new information about Jewish astronauts and scientists, etc." And who, oh, by the way, that person's an atheist, and they can be Jewish. Yeah, they can be. How is that? Well, that's a nice discussion starter. To our information, there is that teacher who's doing a substantial bit in socials in the English as a second language teacher in the FRR school in the middle grades. I know that there are a couple of school librarians who put up displays. That's all I'm aware of. So if you're saying that in every building there has been something every May where they have had a display and
No. I was wondering,
yeah.
I was wondering
Okay.
just for you to clarify for yourself what you meant,
Yeah.
because I wanted you to make sure that when you're putting this forward, you understand what, if I were an educator reading this and I'm the math teacher, would I feel like, oh, okay, we're all set because the librarian has already addressed this, right? I just want you to sort of have a definition in your own head of what that would mean.
Well, that's a leadership question.
Well, if I could add to this, for many years I actually was a science and math teacher at a variety of private schools in the area, including the Cambridge School of Weston, actually 2 private schools in the area. And I will tell you that during heritage type times, I actually would incorporate things into my curriculum. Now, not a public school curriculum, didn't have to worry about the MCAS or state standards. I completely understand about that. But when I was teaching physics, I would mention physicists of different backgrounds for different months and acknowledge that. You mentioned mathematics. I believe Emmy Noether was one of the great Jewish mathematicians and who doesn't get mentioned often enough. So I would say that, teachers of all disciplines could find ways to even briefly in May, even if it's simply handing out a worksheet or sending students to a website and making it enrichment and not disrupt their curriculum, show that they can also celebrate Jewish American Heritage Month.
You just completely got what I was looking for. I think that in your answer there, I see that you understand what you mean.
Well, like I said, I was a teacher for many years.
And I'm a lawyer, so what do I know?
Okay, so is it still the will of the committee that we do not take a vote on this particular warrant article and that we instead perhaps have a very short statement saying that we are, in fact, doing this? Jesse, did you have some thoughts on that? You had some earlier. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that. You had, because you had said something earlier. Not tonight.
The last time, right.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll say I apologize because I read Andy's message yesterday maybe about our decision to write the statement, and then I said to myself, I'm going to sit down right now and write the statement and send it back to Andy, and I didn't, and I apologize, but I will be happy to step up to say I'll do that in the next day or two and send it back.
Okay.
So we have a starting draft.
Okay, great. Is that okay with everybody? We got a thumbs up? Thumbs up? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for presenting tonight. And good luck with
Thank
the
you.
warrant article.
And thank you for giving us the platform. And again, if it's not just resting on laurels, if you can promote it, we would love that.
Okay, we're going to move on to Mariah and the budget guidelines. Does that sound right?
Thank you. So you have in front of you 2 copies of the document. One is with track changes from last time, and the other is the clean version, so you don't have to look at all the track changes. And I'm going to just quickly voice over some of the key changes as I heard it. One was make it shorter, so we did. So you can see, particularly on the first page, there was a lot of scratch out. Then, if you look at the track changes version, that shows you that easily. At our last meeting, we had talked about what would that world language look like. Helen, Sarah, me, and Jody, I and Jody spoke about this today. And we, and based on Jody's feedback, this was the wording that is in here. And Jody was very clear that the literacy rollout really had to take precedence through next year, which is FY26. And then there could be planning for world language in 27 to return world language in a robust option. It's not necessarily written as starting in kindergarten. I think that leaves some flexibility, but the idea would be that the program itself is stronger, better, does more of what we are hoping to, aligns with the report, et cetera. So that would be for FY28. So you see that's 1B. And then we had also talked about putting a pin in universal pre-K. And so that's what 1C is. And you'll notice that there is no year identified for universal pre-K because we had talked about that being tied to larger federal or state programming. Going to a, or, sorry, go ahead.
You know, I was
Yeah.
looking at this just now.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we should add upon the availability of town, federal, or state?
Do you think there's going to be a town subsidy for
You
pre-kindergarten?
never know, we might have a windfall.
I don't think that would be a subsidy. I don't think you would describe that as a subsidy.
No,
right?
oh, okay.
Yes. Certainly, well, one of the things I was going to say was,
Funding.
there's nothing that precludes us in future years from changing what this looks like, but this is our current thinking
right.
about it.
Sorry.
That's okay. Going down to 2D, we added in some enrichment language as well around summer programming at the high school. And then 3A took some of Jesse's language from his document to make SIPs a little more majestic. And then 3C, the request had been to push dashboards out of that first text down into the budget itself, since there's a budgetary impact. So that is making sure that dashboards should be in there by this year, which was what we had before.
Can you repeat that last one again?
Originally,
Talked about driving it down into it.
yeah, originally that was, if you see it sort of if you look at the bottom of page 1, it was scratched out there. Because people said that has a budgetary impact, please put it into the guidelines instead of burying it in the front text. So I pushed it down. And I shortened it a little bit too, trying to adhere to the request to shorten, but hopefully keeping the core of it. So that's the changes, just going through, and it ended up a little over a page and a half now.
But on that topic, we're not talking about the development of dashboards as being, adding to the expense. We're just.
Well,
putting
someone
it in
has
the-
to do them.
Right.
And
So it's part of the overall budget, is the development and support.
Yes,
and
we're saying if
revision
it's
of-
not, it should be, because we
Right,
need
okay.
this, right? Whether
That's
it's
what
the upfront expense of the dashboard development from a developer.
Right, that's
Yes.
what I had in mind originally. Okay,
Exactly,
great.
yep.
Thank you.
So,
Would you like to move this, and then we can have discussion? and
Sure, I'll move
second
it.
Okay. So moved? You'll second. Okay. Let's have some conversation before we take a vote. Stephen?
Thanks. I like these changes. Just a couple of things. One is I still think that literacy should be the full funding of the literacy curriculum and instructional upgrade should be a standalone item, even though it's also represented in the strategic plan because of its one-time, because of the fact that it's a one-time activity and that it's such a major initiative of PSB. The way it's represented in here, that it's the time frame is to allow for intensive focus on literacy rollout. It seems like it's just sort of explaining world language.
that is the case. It's just explaining world language.
Right, so
It's in the primary guideline, yeah.
Okay, so I still think that there should be a mention of the full funding of the literacy initiative of PSB in here. That's my first comment, and my second comment is, I think we should strike everything in the introduction after conversely for two reasons. One is the same reason that I objected to what was in the introduction last time. I think it forecloses the school committee's ability to make decisions. I think by saying that we're committing to defunding anything not in the strategy means that we are taking executive power out of our hands in this statement. And I think it's immediately contradicted in 1B because world language is not in the strategic plan and yet we're committing to it. So I think it's immediately a contradictory statement. So I think it's a bad idea, and then I think it makes no sense.
So is that an amendment to the,
Yeah, I propose an amendment that strikes word conversely through the end of that paragraph.
So conversely to sustainability?
Yes.
we have a second?
I'll second.
Well, does this also include the comment about literacy then too? Because Stephen had two
Well, I
points,
haven't
right?
heard from Stephen yet on that. What are you doing with that?
I'd like to move them separately.
Okay.
I'd like to first move that there be a standalone statement where we commit to fully funding the literacy initiative. And secondly, that we strike everything from conversely through sustainability.
You're doing this two separate motions?
Yeah.
So we've got a second on the conversely sentences,
I'll second the literacy one.
second the literacy. Okay, let's,
What is the literacy one?
That we add a statement.
No, but what is the words?
Sure.
And where does it go? Under staffing or under budget?
I guess under staffing. I mean, we have curricular stuff under staffing anyway, so I would say A or D or whatever, ensure that the literacy, I would defer to you, Jody, for phrasing, but I would suggest something along the lines of ensure that the literacy curriculum and instructional upgrade is fully funded through the conclusion of the upgrade or the 3-year commitment or whatever it is that we want to call it. Whatever that-
At what level? K to 12? K to 3? K to
I
5?
don't-
5.
What was that, Jody?
It's ultimately going to be K to 8.
K to 8.
And I was,
What would you recommend as wording, Jody, if we were to do it?
The district is committed to fully funding the purchase of new materials aligned with the science of reading.
Can I ask a follow-up, Jody? Do you feel that we need this guideline to be added to this document?
I do, because in many ways, this document is a statement of our priorities, and we know that literacy is one of our priorities. Even though it is called out in the strategic plan, the program adoption isn't necessarily as explicit in the strategic plan as it could be.
Can you repeat your wording again that you said? That's the worst thing for anyone I know. Betsy, did you write it down? Can we roll back the tape? The district is committed of literacy materials K through 8. Okay.
That aligned with the
I would
science
say,
of reading.
I would say literacy materials and professional development.
So for FY '26, fully fund
Right.
the purchase,
Why don't you say literacy initiative?
hold on, K-8
Does that incorporate-
literacy materials and professional development
Right.
Aligned to the
You have
science
to
of
have
reading.
that.
For all that, I think.
aligned to the science of reading. Well, do we?
And I would say
Literacy
FY
initiative
'26
covers
through 8, right? It's a 3-year purchase?
Correct, Stephen.
That's the part that I'm unclear about. We're writing budget priorities for fiscal year '25, and
No.
yet.
No,
26
It
through
keeps
30.
going.
This is a
26 through
multi-year
30,
document.
okay. It's a multi-year document, so it means that the priority is going to continue to show up. We're committing to having it continue to show up in this document over the course of 3 years. Where else does a budget item that's 3 years long show up? Do we have, like,
We have. I don't think
Okay.
it's a problem.
all right.
So
I happen to think it's under budget, but not staffing, but.
that's fine. We can put it under budget.
I could go either.
So for FY '26 through '27, fully fund the purchase of K-8 materials and professional development.
But can we just say the literacy initiative?
That's what I'm wondering, for the literacy initiative.
Yeah, that will
Yeah.
cover it all.
Fully
Yes.
fund the literacy initiative, materials and PD?
Yep.
Okay,
Perfect.
there we go.
Just to round it out, I sort of thought it would then belong under educational equity, since literacy affects all, and it's really not a fiscal.
It's such a
fiscal thing.
broad
Yeah.
topic.
There you go. Yes.
It's anonymous. Okay, so we'll put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you care, Stephen, where it goes?
I definitely don't.
Okay,
Okay,
so we have the wording.
should we vote on that?
Two motions, yeah.
Yeah, we need to?
Yep.
Yep,
Well, yeah, there were two motions.
yeah, Jesse?
We're voting on both at the same time?
No.
No,
Or
just
just
this
the-
one.
Literacy.
Literacy, adding the literacy.
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, on the second,
So I'll move to strike conversely through sustainability.
Second?
Seconded.
okay, a vote or discussion?
I would like to say, if it's okay, that I don't agree with that. I don't know why I'm asking if it's okay. I don't agree with that. I think it's really important that, that we can't always add. We have to provide a mechanism for being able to refine the focus, and we have to make it clear that we are open to staff making those recommendations and identifying those activities. We're not going to be really good at what we want to be really good at if we can't let go of the things that we don't think get us where we want to be.
But we already have that power. We're committing here to defunding anything that is deemed not aligned with the strategic plan.
And
That-
why was that a problem, though?
Because that means that we will no longer be making decisions in the future about what we can and can't fund. If it is not aligned, then it will not be funded.
Oh, do you want to strike and defunded? Identified or a strategy for exiting these activities will be described? Just the and defunded?
I guess I don't even want to do that. I think we should have the ability to reconsider it. There may be extenuating circumstances. I agree with your general point that we should be committed to prioritizing the strategic plan, but I want to retain I want the school committee to retain the power to consider non-aligned ideas in extenuating circumstances.
I don't think that this removes that power, but that's a perspective.
If I could add to that.
Helen, then Carolyn?
I'm sorry, were you?
No,
before me?
no.
You know, this is a more positive document of what we do want to do. And I think that I like that tone to it, rather than putting in something that is more negative to my eyes.
Are you saying that this
We
is
may end
negative?
up there. We may end up having to do this stuff. We did last year. It was hard and it was awful. But to put it into our guidelines, I'm not sure it helps us any. My opinion.
Carolyn?
Thanks. I think that's a helpful way of framing that, what Helen just said. And I had, before the meeting, circled this section also. I circled the word defunded and wrote what, is there an example? And maybe more importantly, I highlighted activities that are clearly not aligned with the strategic plan. And with all due respect for the strategic plan, it's not filled with super tangibles. Some of it is pretty broad, I think. And so I feel like it kind of just leaves a lot open to interpretation. And you could say that about even the things that we are including. So I'm not sure that makes sense, but I support this motion for the reasons that Helen just said and for the reason that Stephen proposed it.
Sarah?
For the sake of continuing a conversation, I want to support Mariah, but I want you to tell me, Mariah, if this is not really what you were thinking, because this is the way that I'm thinking about it. So we all sort of agree that this is in reality what we do. And I like these documents to help kind of educate people on the importance of the work that we do. So I see the strategic plan and having that, come through to the budget, to the school improvement plans as really being the strength of what the work school committee is trying to do. Because when you have a whole system-wide, trying to align itself, you get all the players together and you can actually move something and do something. So I like this language in this document as a way to kind of educate people about what we try to do with budget and what we try to do with strategic plan.
Yes, that is, part of it is education, but I think the other important part is the last 4 words, which is long-term budget sustainability. And the document, we had this extensive conversation about this last time about add, and there's no representation of anything being removed. And when we don't talk about removing, it's, to me, sets a little bit of a tone of disconnection with our responsibilities to continue to hone the budget to something that hopefully can be funded and to maximize that efficiency.
Jesse?
Yeah, to that point, Mariah, my question is, when I read the sentence, it sort of brings to mind some kind of like drift process, if you know what I mean.
Which sentence?
The one we're discussing, conversely. In other words, that somehow we have a strategic plan, which is amorphous in some ways. It's broad with principles and themes. And we're saying in this sentence that we need, I'm trying to turn into a more positive view of it, that we need to be attentive to situations in which we drift sort of off course a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's where the defunding comes in. We want to let those programs just disappear, so to bring us back to within our guidelines. So we're sort of watching the things that go over the guardrails and
Yes.
common language.
Yes.
So that's sort of how I looked at it. That
Yes.
we pay attention, that it's our responsibility at times to become aware of drifting and course correct. So I'd be happy with some kind of statement like that. That sort of touches on to the extent possible that we need to clean things out when we see that we've moved off target. Maybe we can just come up with some language like that.
How would you word that? Because I really hope we're going to vote this tonight, so I'm trying to wordsmith in public, which is my worst nightmare. But so far it's been successful, so.
So let me
Carolyn, do you
try a
have-
few things while the conversation continues.
Okay.
Carolyn?
Okay. So I think that's helpful. I was going to say that, Mariah, I respect your commitment to the long-term budget sustainability. I was going to ask whether that could potentially go up, as a 5 somehow in your very first paragraph. Also appreciate the challenge of wordsmithing in real time. And this is a total aside, and maybe I'll bring this up in our workshop. With total respect for we're all busy, we all try to do stuff. I wish we could have had this. This isn't directed at anyone. I just wished we could have had this a little sooner. Like, I personally didn't really have time to give this a lot of consideration with the time that we received it today. And again, not directed at anyone.
It was me, it was my bad.
Well,
I didn't realize it was on the agenda for tonight till Betsy asked me where it was.
It's really just, it's just a statement.
I missed it. I looked at the,
We read it once already.
we did, we had looked at it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I read the agenda when it was first published, and I
True.
missed that it was on there, so.
Yeah.
Just-
My bad.
Stephen,
Sorry.
are you not?
Were you
Come
done,
on,
Carolyn? I just have thought about some compromise language, Mariah. Since this is supposed to be, if I understand, school committee guidance to the administration in these opening paragraphs, what about something like the school committee encourages the whatever. I'm going to move aside from the preamble. Activities that are clearly not aligned with the strategic plan, we encourage the administration either to develop a strategic plan. We encourage the administration to integrate them into the strategic plan so that they could be appropriately measured or supported or deprioritized, something like that. So that we're reinforcing the idea that non-aligned activities can't remain non-aligned. They have to either go into the strategic plan or get deprioritized. But issuing guidance to ourselves doesn't make any sense to me.
We're not issuing guidance to ourselves.
I guess the way we're talking
aligned.
about it, saying like we're going to curb the excesses, that kind of language doesn't make as much sense to me.
This is a directive to staff.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about, someone said putting it up at the top paragraph. What do you think
Yeah, I
about
like
making
that.
it rather than having it be a number 5 and just say, like, guide us as we make difficult, important choices, and for enable us to maintain relentless focus on our priorities, comma, and 5, support long-term budget sustainability, something like that.
Yeah, I could do that.
Would that work for you, Jesse, too? Just roll it up as a number 5 in the first paragraph?
Yeah, that's a great goal.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't get to the
Fine.
drift idea, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but.
Well, so the drift is captured, sorry, Carolyn, the drift is
Yeah.
sort of captured in 4 and 3
Yeah.
there. So I think,
Sure.
it's,
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
sort of
good.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah,
And I think the drift is sort of implicit, and I think that's maybe the nature of what Stephen sort of opened this conversation with. It's like implicit in that we are going to invest in priorities, kind of is that some things might drift, and
Well, I guess my
I get why it's
my
there.
thought on it was, Carolyn, was more like it's not the best wording, but sort of committing to identify activities or initiatives that may require corrective action, something like that. In other words, it's really putting some responsibility out there to make sure we actually do it, that it's a goal, because we know there are going to be activities and projects that start that may not be within the strategic plan. So then what? So when they're identified, and then the question would be how do we identify them, and what actions do we take?
Okay, so where are we? You're going to add number 5?
Well, I think we should have a vote, because while I suggested a solution, I don't agree with it, and I would vote against it, so.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm trying
So-
to make it something that you all can rally around while I vote against it, because I don't agree with it.
What do you think of the alternative language suggesting that non-aligned activities either be integrated into the strategic plan or deprioritized? Does that get at the essence of what you were trying to say?
It does, but I think like this, if you all can work with the sort of roll it up into number 5, if that works for you, then.
I'm trying to get at something that you might like, though,
But I'm
Mariah.
afraid that doesn't say anything, because you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it would be, this is the second paragraph, or the second sentence of paragraph 1. In accordance with our responsibilities, we present our suggested multi-year guidelines to 1, inform construction of the budget for the upcoming and future fiscal years. 2, allow us to review all spending proposals through a shared lens. 3, guide us as we make difficult, important choices. 4, enable us to make a relentless to maintain a relentless focus on our priorities, and 5, to support long-term budget sustainability.
I think that sounds great.
And then you're getting rid of all the conversely, that replaces.
Right.
That goes out.
That's what you all would vote, yes. I think that nothing else in that document, nothing else, if we do this, nothing else in the document supports that we are actually supporting long-term budget sustainability. It is a meaningless statement because we have not articulated anything that says to remove anything. All we do is add.
Well, what about just adding number 5, the support thing, and then taking out the conversely phrase and just start with the word activities? Just like, I agree with what you're saying, that if we put 4 words at the top, support long-term budget sustainability, what does that mean? Maybe the sentence that Stephen suggested was problematic could just start after the first phrase and just say activities not aligned or some misaligned priorities, whatever they are, with the plan will be identified and defunded. That way it doesn't start with this whole conversely and to the extent possible. We're articulating a goal, which is to maintain a focus on looking for things that drifted, let's just say, and to bring them back into the plan or
See, I feel like,
jettison them.
well, conversely was just because it's meant to tie to the fact that the primary guideline, right? This is
Right.
the flip side of the
Yes,
primary
this-
guideline.
Right, this is working outside.
And
the
to the extent possible, that mitigated all of these kinds of fears that we were giving away our power. This is something that's saying some things aren't going to go away. I don't know.
Right.
Something that might feel like misaligned, but we
They're still
say,
gonna do.
in a year, it's going to, we're going to add it into the next one, so don't make it disappear. Okay,
Yeah,
right? Like,
I
oh, we
agree, yeah.
realize it got missed this time, it's not here. Okay.
okay.
I don't know, I would vote against these changes, but
Okay, so
Okay, I'll make a motion.
we have several motions.
What's
We're
the
gonna
motion?
Well, we still have Stephen's motion
to delete it
to
altogether.
delete it altogether.
I'll
You want to
make a
withdraw
friendly
yours?
amendment
Okay.
that we delete it and put in number 5 to support long-term budget sustainability.
Okay, do we have a second to that?
Second.
Okay. You ready to vote on that?
On the friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Are we voting on the friendly amendment or the whole thing?
I think the
I'd like to
friendly-
vote on the whole thing if we could, but that would
No, we
include the
first have
friendly.
No.
amendment.
No, I
Friendly
meant the whole thing. I meant not just, are we voting just on the amendment, or are we voting on the amendment and the deletion?
Oh, no, it's the amendment and the deletion.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That one we got. We ready?
And
Yes.
then we're going to continue to, we're not voting on the whole document
We
yet.
are after that.
Okay. Because I still have questions about
Yeah,
the whole.
we.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're just trying to get through this part.
Got it.
We'll see what we can do. We'll start over here. Carolyn?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Mariah?
No.
Sarah?
No.
Stephen?
Sorry, if the friendly amendment doesn't pass, then does the original motion then get put up for a vote?
Yes.
No.
No, you're voting no.
No, see, because you're following proper Roberts rules and they're not. You should be voting yes right now if you get what you want. What you would give, what you want is yes.
I don't, the friendly amendment doesn't make a ton of sense to me because I don't see how we're supporting long-term budget sustainability. So it seems like kind of a dangling idea to me, so I don't really want to support that friendly amendment.
Okay, that's,
You just want to remove conversely and you don't want.
I do want to remove the entire last sentence,
Yeah.
the last 2 sentences.
Right, but that's part of the friendly amendment.
But he's saying he doesn't like it.
But I don't, but putting that last
It's
clause
an unfriendly
into
amendment
number.
to him.
So then you voted
I vote
correctly, and then
against,
we'll-
yeah.
It may or may not end up happening.
Right,
The sustainability
as number 5.
without the rest
Right.
on it as a standalone, that you
Right,
don't
'cause
like
I don't
that?
see how our guidelines support long-term budgets.
You agree with that point where it's like not really present in the rest of the
Right.
document? Yeah.
Sorry. I'm voting no on the friendly amendment with apologies.
Jesse?
Also no.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So can
So we
we,
got 4 noes.
4 noes and,
2 yeses. It's my vote.
Then you didn't vote.
can
I
we
don't know how to vote.
then vote on
well, it
the,
doesn't matter because it lost
Doesn't
anyway.
can we vote on the original motion without the friendly amendment?
Yes, we have to.
We
Okay.
can, yeah, we should.
Sorry, did you not vote, Suzanne?
No, I didn't vote, abstain. I just, at this point, I don't know. Just my,
Okay, so now we go back to the original amendment, which is to delete the entire paragraph.
from conversely through sustainability.
Okay. And we've already had that
I'll call the
seconded.
vote.
I'll call the vote. Thank you.
Sorry, I wanted to ask a question. I'm sorry, but
About this,
Just
about
this-
that
we're just
paragraph?
voting
That
the
last?
amendment,
I know.
Not the whole thing.
I know. No, I know that. I just still.
You'll get many more bites at the apple.
The whole, it's just, what troubles me a little is this whole thing just feels vague to me. Like, I wish I knew an example of, like, where people who worked on the strategic plan, which I think is very vague and, or just broad, and then we're talking about activities, and activities I don't think are named in the strategic plan. So then, like, can somebody just say, like, what you would anticipate defunding?
I don't have an example of what I would anticipate defunding, but I can give an example of something that I think is unaligned with the strategic plan, and it's an opportunity to revisit it and see how we should be doing that better, which is adult ed. It's part of the PSB, it's not present in the strategic plan, and I think that was a missed opportunity. So I'm not saying we would necessarily get rid of it, but so maybe we need to tweak that wording to say a strategy for exiting or modifying these activities or the plan or something like that, right? Like, but when things don't fit in the plan, why are we doing them?
There are things, okay. There are things that won't fit in the plan, that come from the federal government, that come from the state.
But
that come
but
from
base
the
is not a
town.
mandate.
Huh?
I'm just giving one example, just picking on base for a second, just like, you're right, there are things which are mandates.
And base is part of the public schools, that's where.
That's why
every
it should
adult
be in the
education-
strategic plan.
Yes, but they're not, they're a separate entity, I don't.
They're not a separate entity.
I don't agree that.
I'm not saying,
Managing them.
I don't think, I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm pointing out that they are not present in the strategic plan.
Yeah, but there's nothing financial there, well, there was when they were.
There's been multiple years of financial.
But there used to be multiple years of them giving us money, so it goes both ways.
It's not about the money. It's about what are the things that we're trying to do
But
here and how are
This is
we.
about the budget.
But it's about the priorities and how, so you're right, it is about the money of it, because it's about how, and I don't want to pick on base. I shouldn't have even given an example.
It's not a good example.
It's not a good example. Well, it is a good example because it's not present and it should be.
I mean, you could say sports.
Maybe, I don't know that sports actually, but whatever it is, right? Maybe we say, whatever, blah, 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 ceramics, I'm making it up, I'm just picking on something. I love ceramics. I know, there's no good.
My house is filled with ceramics from the age.
Can
we just get through this?
My point is just that if something's not obviously present, and that doesn't mean that it shouldn't eventually come in, it's that we should think about how it fits in the story,
That's good. Good.
right?
Right.
And so maybe the wording could be something like the strategy, for exiting or aligning these activities.
You know what, I'm going to make a suggestion, rather than wordsmithing here.
I like that.
Does
I
that work
would
for you,
like
exiting or
Mariah
Aligning, yeah.
and
Okay.
Stephen to get together. and
We just
discuss-
did. We solved it.
You got it?
Exiting or aligning,
Yeah,
right?
or aligning.
Okay.
Okay, you have it now?
There's some things
So
that,
you're withdrawing yours amendment?
Can I suggest exiting, aligning, or deprioritizing?
Sure, that's fine. Or deprioritizing.
I'm really glad that we got to this point because I think that when the strategic plan was adopted, there was a little bit of a sense of let's not make the perfect the enemy of the
Yes,
good, right?
for sure.
And so that evening, I remember not being ready to vote yes for the strategic plan. And then Dr. Guillory said, we need to move forward, please,
Yes,
I
agree.
And I voted for it. So this is our chance to amend things that need to be amended.
So
You guys
I'd
are-
like to suggest, I'd just like to suggest that we take a vote by 8:15.
We can do that.
So you guys are suggesting that the strategic plan is a living document that can change over time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And this, I think, helps that point.
Understood. Thank you.
Right.
So the
But
wording-
now it's not required to be in the strategic plan. Where we could say if it's not in there, that doesn't mean we're kicking it out. It could mean that we're kicking it in.
That's
but
right.
there needs to be a decision made. It's a decision point that it's being identified. Either we're kicking it out, we're kicking it in, or we're deprioritizing it. But it's not an automatic, you're out.
Yeah.
Right,
That I'm comfortable with.
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so you
So
would,
can I suggest alternate language being that are clearly not aligned with the strategic plan will be identified and defunded, aligned, or deprioritized? So there are three options here.
So you want to delete all the middle language there?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was important, but it doesn't have to be immediate, like multi-year or starting in later
I thought you were going
years.
to put them after the four exiting.
Yeah, I thought it was.
After the
and
word
I-
exiting,
That's even better.
comma, aligning, comma, or deprioritizing.
Yeah, that's what I thought was
Three activities.
identified and defunded or a strategy, multi-year and or
That's
starting
better.
for exiting, comma, aligning, comma, or deprioritizing
Yes.
these
Yes,
activities will
there.
describe. That's what I wrote down.
That,
Okay,
that
yeah,
works
that's
for me.
good.
Okay, good.
Thanks, everyone, for your patience.
Okay, so we have that.
That's what we're here for.
Okay, so have you withdrawn your amendment?
I withdraw my amendment.
Seconded.
And now we have to, and now we are friendly amending. Is everyone on board with the word changes? Okay.
So we have 5 minutes before I'd like to vote on the whole thing. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up? We have
Yes.
the floor. Go ahead, Carolyn.
And I think it's important that we discuss this until we're done discussing it.
Well, no. We're not gonna-
Well,
Suzanne,
yes.
this is sort of one of our formative documents. of the
Yeah,
year.
and Suzanne,
But we're
you
close,
chose-
and I agree with wanting to move it ahead,
Okay,
yes.
so
And
go
you
ahead,
chose
Carolyn.
to extend
Go ahead.
public comment for, when we had, yeah, so we need to talk about this document. I had a few questions. So in staffing enrollment, I don't mind having the word K through 12 enrollment, the forecasts, but I think like at least this year, have our forecasts served us well? That's just sort of like a question. I know I keep hearing how this year's enrollment doesn't look like it is true to the forecasts that the district contracted. Educational equity. Oh, yeah. Can somebody educate me about what the potential policy on life of the school? So this is like if it happens, we would fund it, and I don't really know that much about what that is. And then I'll throw out my other, do you want to answer that? Or just
Is the question, what is the policy on life of the school? Or is that what you're asking, is just clarifying what it was?
Yes.
So there are
it's
many-
not adopted.
It hasn't been adopted, it's
Okay.
been discussed, and it's sort of in a stasis period right now. So it is it docketed? Okay. So there are many activities that happen outside of the school day, which not all students can fully participate in. And so this was looking at how those activities could be fully enabled for all students to participate in. But to give an example, say a student has an aid for behavior during the day, and then they want to participate in the school play. How do they participate in the school play? But there are certainly, this falls in a very gray area. And so I'll say, gray area of, as I understand it, legal obligation. And so how we are affirming our legal obligations while also being able to afford the consequences of the decisions, while also promoting inclusion for all of our students. There's multiple levels there to unpack.
Okay, thank you. And that makes sense.
Carolyn, I just linked the last draft in the long-term docket. Just
Oh,
want to take a look at it.
Thank you. Awesome, thank you. Budget, C. Plan driving on student dashboards. Again, late to the party on the strategic plan and the use of the word dashboards. Are we talking about metrics, benchmarks? And the strategic plan doesn't have much of that. We have MCAS scores and a couple others.
It has them articulated, but how we then visualize the progress against them is not articulated.
Okay. Oh, thank you. And so, dashboards. So does dashboards, that implies metrics? We don't need to say metrics, benchmarks?
It's all in there.
Progress, okay, fine. In the SIP paragraph 3A, spending should support the broader mission of the school, be tracked against goals and regularly measured, reported. Maybe it's too soon to speak to this in here, but there is some brewing conversation or question about what the school budgets are and whether they're proportionate to the school size, et cetera. So are we comfortable that this will capture that, or that it would just be organically okay?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, I think that this, to me, felt the right level of specific in that we don't have those answers, but we sort of, I think, are all looking at this, expecting something in that direction.
So
Yes.
there's not going to, yeah, okay, fine. If you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. Thank you for the answers, Mariah.
Okay, thank you. Let's go for a vote.
It's too late. I move it.
Okay, Jesse, we're voting for the package right now.
What did you say?
He moved,
Move it.
he moved it, I second
I thought you
it.
did
Oh,
already.
that's
think,
Oh,
oh, you're right, I did move it earlier.
Oh, you did already move it.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
moved it a while ago.
Removed it.
I
We
removed
had
it.
all those
Removed.
friendly things. Your vote, Jesse.
Yes.
Stephen.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Mariah.
Yes.
Helen.
Yes.
Carolyn.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Nice job. Thank you, Mariah.
You guys all wanted, but I'm putting it again.
Thanks, everyone, for working so much on this. And so, Betsy, if it makes sense, I'll just make a fourth final, like, as-voted version and share it with you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for all your work on it, Mariah.
Thank you, Mariah. Dr. Guillory, are you still there, or have you, we lost you?
I am still here.
Okay.
So what I did, and I'm hearing echo, but I'm not sure if you all are hearing it.
No, it's okay.
No, we're
Okay.
not hearing it.
Okay, great. So what I did was try to incorporate some of the feedback. Certainly not all of it was incorporated to the goals discussion. And what you have before you tonight is just the actual goal. Last time, what I gave you was some of the benchmarks and key actions, and I'm going to continue to process through some of what was shared to be able to provide artifacts that would meet the goals. So what changed in this was in the second part, where here I'll continue to do my work with principals in the areas of student engagement because that's what students leverage to access curricular materials. But the broader question, I think, that was posed by maybe Mariah was looking at it at the system level. So thinking about evaluations at the system level, what I'm going to do is use the 23, 24 as benchmarks for certificated staff members, and then project a growth based on that. So we're in the process of reviewing the 23, 24 evaluation data, and that's just on the formative and summative, which are the end of year evaluations, depending on if you are depending on where you are in the evaluation cycle. So that's how goal one, I plan to share that at the district level. For goal two on coherence, I don't think I made any adjustments to this one, except in the artifacts. I think Stephen may have mentioned something about or maybe it was Carolyn, to say, sort of hone in on some of the key initiatives. And I think here in the key actions and benchmarks, I talked about the work that's happening around the literacy pieces. I think of what we're going to hold up. And then I talked about a pilot. One of the schools wants to try a pilot for middle school students. So I'm looking at incorporating that as part of, again, the broader work around literacy.
Right, because, I'm so sorry, because of the audio, I didn't fully catch what you were saying there about a pilot. I heard something, develop a pilot.
One of the K-8 schools is interested in looking at doing a writing pilot to really look at how to increase middle school students' writing abilities. So I want to work with the principal on that aspect of it. And so I was going to leverage that as a part of the coherence and connecting with the work that's happening on the literacy front. Then for goal 3 were internal district communications. And again, not much shifted here, but again, the notion of the internal staff communication has been the big one that we're really focusing on. And we got some feedback tonight on sort of the superintendent's report. So it will be this bigger push on increasing the quality of the communications that are going out both internally as well as externally. And the budget process, again, I think this one remains primarily unchanged.
Can I ask
The key actions and indicated the key actions and benchmarks, I'll work to incorporate some of the feedback that was provided there. But the overall goals, I think the biggest shift was in goal 1.
Yeah, just a question, Dr. Guillory, on that one. I mean, I had a question on it earlier when I wasn't sure if you were waiting till the end or.
No, go ahead.
Or sorry?
We're ready for it.
Yeah, so I guess my question in goal 3 is how that's going to be measured. Is this, for example, implementing software that the district may not be using today that tells you actually how many emails sent to parents and caregiver guardians or to others in the normal course of your work are actually opened, for example? I mean, sending out communication.
We have that already.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
we have that on the on our Blackboard aspect of it, and part of what we also have in the strategic plan is increasing our open rate as well. So we're looking at some of the feedback we're getting about the length, the time, and those aspects of it. This one is more, as you see here, it's more of a professional practice goal. So something that I'm looking forward in my particular work in the district is this notion of staff hearing. This is really more about internal, but I'm also applying it externally. But it's more about staff hearing directly from the superintendent or the superintendent's office, which includes the 4 corners on the 5th floor, and what information may be timely and helpful for staff as such.
Thank you.
Mariah, did you have something? Okay, Sarah?
As we all know, we look at these goals to make sure that they're realistic. So to that end, in goal 1, I was wondering how you are when you give staff feedback, how you are with caseload. Could you comment on, do you have the right number of evaluations that you're writing that you can be effective with, or do you have too many?
Well, that's a very powerful question, Sarah. So many years ago, when I was doing a business certificate at Rice University, one of the metrics or measurement that was used at the time was that evaluators should really have a caseload of 8 to 12 individuals. But I've never had that as an administrator in any organization in which I've worked. It's always been 20 to 25. And so with my group, I really focus intently on the principals as well as my senior staff. And part of that feedback is the ongoing dedicated check-ins as well. So it's not necessarily always written, but it's the just in time or the ongoing consistent feedback. And so in that stead, because I have regularly scheduled meetings and visits, I do think that it is manageable. But right now, my caseload as a superintendent is about 17 to 18 all in, with principal, senior staff, and then some support staff.
And it sounds like you just are accepting that as the reality because of the organizational chart. You see those people as being the people that you want to be in touch with and giving feedback to.
Absolutely, and certainly you'd like to be able to spread wider, but that's just an unrealistic goal. And as of right now, I mean, it's an unrealistic um, goal to try to take on more as such. So, but I've been a principal a long time, so this caseload isn't one that I'm not saying it's necessarily right, but I'm just saying that it's is what it is at this juncture, and so you make the best of it.
Right.
Four. I'm waiting for him to get through four.
I think you,
We didn't talk about four. He went through three.
oh, he said it was about the same. Did you have anything else to say about goal 4?
No, I think it was pretty much the same. I said what I would do is under the benchmarks and key actions was incorporate some of the feedback around how might that be measured. Because I think one of the questions here was about like the budget book, and certainly we're going to work to continue to refine it. But what we're really looking at is getting our budget managers ensuring that they are in sync with the notion of budgeting and managing budgets well throughout the entire process as such. We also talked about this notion of working with in this case, our building principals for their school site councils to ensure of their input in the budgeting process. And I think you all saw that through this SIP presentation this year as well. And then it's looking at many of our schools already look at their populations that may be struggling to demonstrate academic proficiency or engagement in other aspects of the school. And so they have either after school clubs or either spring break, or we call them the break clubs and break supports and those types of things as well. So we'll try to capture some examples of that as we go along.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Linus. I really appreciate these goals. I have one question and one comment. My first comment is on goal 1 and just how you're measuring success so that I'm clear. You wrote increase in the number of completed formative and summative evaluations, and that's district-wide as
That's
opposed to your
district-wide.
direct reports. Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I would suggest there is maybe to just clarify that it's district-wide. And
Okay.
also, rather than be number, you make it a percent, because imagine we were to lose 10 staff or, I don't know, 2 staff, whatever it was, right? You might end up reducing the number while actually doing a more comprehensive job in, just want to make it percent, not number. And then for number 2, can I just make sure I understand what we're talking about for the successes? So for example, improvement in student outcomes tied to strategic initiatives. So the strategic initiative might be the literacy initiative, and the improvement in student outcomes might be an increase in ELA assessments of whatever flavor of assessment we are using. Is that accurate to say that those would be the types of measures that would be success measures under goal 2?
Yeah, so even like with our benchmark testing that we're going to be launching, and then you all were having the conversation earlier about the benchmarks. So what we're going to try to do is elevate, and this is it's difficult because those exams weren't designed for that. So I want to make sure that I'm careful not to try to overly infer something from a assessment that wasn't designed that way. But what I really want to think about here in terms of is really this notion of the connectivity that we're seeing between really the offices, I think, and I don't have my key indicators in here, but I think this is the part where I really talked about the office interplay, working with one another, I think is what we're going to try to highlight here.
Well, I think
If there are other ideas that you all have that you think will be measured, I'd be happy to incorporate those
I
as
would, because there could be a billion, literally, probably different measures that could fit under this, I think it would be valuable for at least me if you identified in advance sort of some key, I'll say
Okay.
like, touchstone measures that you think really accurately pull, might cut across multiple offices and help you, sort of would be like a great synthesis of, do you feel you're going in the right direction? I would find it really valuable to have that sense. And not to say you might not call out other measures, but just sort of identifying in advance a couple of measures would be very valuable, because this is such a broad goal. It would crystallize it for me.
Okay.
It's always hard if we end up identifying based on what we can measure, right? That I have a lot of trouble with data in schools on that particular issue. And then does that mean that we then push ourselves towards that which we can measure instead of what we actually want?
Well, but at the end of the day, this is, that's how he's defined success. So if that's how he's defining success, then we should, I agree with you that all these measures are flawed. On the other hand, I don't think we should rely on any single one of them to be like the truth, right? So it's a blended approach.
I have,
Carolyn?
I also have a question in this section now that we're here. I just find myself rereading, and so I think struggling a little bit to understand the sentence, to promote equity, special attention will be given to ensuring that all schools, particularly those with historically underserved student populations, are fully engaged in the coherence building process. So first of all, I think I keep rereading that because I'm sorry, I'm such a tangible nuts and boltsy person. I just don't fully understand what that means. And I also just would be interested in when you're saying to promote sort of what your thinking of equity is here, and especially special attention, all schools, particularly those with historically underserved student populations, and I'm not sure what that means. And I think that all of our schools are, wouldn't that mean all of our schools? I'm just struggling with, I wish that sentence was a little more specific and clear. Thanks.
So I think to try to bring a little clarity to it. So yes, all of our schools do have historically underserved populations, and historically underserved populations has typically meant low students that are identified as low SES, students that are serviced with some groups of students that are marginalized students on IEPs, and then some students based on their race or ethnic background. So all of our schools do fit that bill, and so I just wrote it sort of in the broader sense in that regard. So as an example, one of the things that we did last year, and we saw in our, and again, I don't necessarily like to tie our state scores to this, but we saw tremendous growth in our student populations this year. Even our higher achieving students, and that's really unheard of to get the growth percentiles that we did this year. And so part of that is digging in and understanding what work was happening there and how can we continue to replicate that. So I'm thinking about the group that's traditionally defined as underserved populations, but I'm also thinking about the students that are higher achieving students, and then how can we also ensure that they are being their needs are being attended to. And so again, this notion of coherence is how do we ensure that all parts of our system are working together to in service of our schools and their needs. So I can try to make that a little clearer, but that's the way that I'm thinking about it.
Thanks. And sorry, I'll follow up, and this might not be right. So are you talking about sort of ensuring that, like, we have parity across all of our, I'll say, the K through 8s in terms of access, et cetera?
Well, those things we see as a baseline given.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but when not necessarily parity, because each school needs something different based on their student makeup and their population. Some of our schools have specialized programs, and so they have a greater need than a school that doesn't have that. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Stephen, then Jesse.
It's a really short question. First, I really like how you define success and progress for each of these goals. It's really appreciated. It's just a small question about goal number 1. I'm supposing that we won't be able to look at the evaluations because they'll probably be HR confidential.
Correct.
And I would like to have I think the school committee should have something more than the number of evaluations completed so that they could have a deeper understanding of the evaluation process. Is there some kind of artifact you could submit to the school committee other than, or maybe in addition to, a number that could provide some insight, maybe like an analysis of the evaluations, or just some way you could provide an anonymized window into the evaluations themselves so we can understand something about the evaluation process that you're doing?
Let me think about that, Stephen, because what I always sort of end up thinking about is the final written evaluation. But the manner in which I've described this, I mean, I think you get it to some degree, but you're not necessarily seeing what's happening in those sessions. So you get the visitation schedules, or when I'm in buildings, how we are walking around the classrooms, and then again, when I'm visiting classrooms, I'm not there evaluating. It's not my role to evaluate a teacher. My role is to evaluate the principal. So when we walk out of classrooms, so this is why it's harder for you to sort of see what's going on. We have a discussion. I have a discussion with the principal. What did you see in there? How does that fit with where that particular body of students should be? So I'm really pushing or pressing the principal on what they're thinking about their school and how instruction is moving. What are the artifacts that they are looking at to ensure that instruction? What data are they considering? All of those types of things. So I'll think about a way to give greater insight into that process.
It could be anything, like it's some maybe description of criteria, or maybe like a range of observations that you made that we can't identify anything by, just so we have a sense of what the evaluations comprise. I think that, because otherwise I feel like I would struggle to know how to understand your work in that area. Otherwise, I think this is really clear and helpful, so thank you.
I just want to make sure that you remember that we had, last time around, we had an evaluation with the name struck out so that we could see some of the language. Did you see that part?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think that this might be something that you're already doing, but we'll go back and look at it again.
Yeah, and thank you for adding that, Sarah. I was going to say that's one component, but that's the at the end of the year, that's the formative or the summative. But there's a lot of work or evaluation that goes in. Our principal may say, I'm having this particular issue. And we go through, my son has now discovered the Socratic method, or they've been talking about it in his 6th grade classroom. And he was asking my wife the other night about it. And so they were going back and forth. And he says, oh, well, Dad does that a lot with me already. So it's a lot of that iterative process with the principal to say, here's a problem of practice that I have. And they say, well, what do you think about it? And so I go through a series of questions with them. I check in with them periodically. And then on the next visit, we dig into it a little bit more deeply as well. But again, it's sort of individualized based on what the principal is experiencing or the school is experiencing, rather than a one size fits all.
And just to flesh that out for us, there isn't a place where you take notes on that. That's all in your head.
Well,
Because
no,
it's on the,
I have it written down. The issue
you do have it
is,
written down.
yeah, I have
Yeah,
it
okay.
in my little handy dandy electronic notebook. But what I've been trying to do, and this is where I've always struggled for years as an administrator, is how then to turn these notes um, into, because what I do is I gather these notes and then I rewrite them or retype them. So if there was an easier mechanism to capture these things so that real time it fed into the to the evaluations. Dr. Fortuna and I actually had a conversation earlier this week about that. Because in other systems, at least with the observations that would happen, they would roll up into the summative. But my handwritten notes, I have to figure out how to take better advantage of those.
Goal number 5.
I think
No more
Mariah had a
goals.
follow-up, and then we'll get to you, Jesse.
I do have a follow-up. One measure that I've seen used, Linus, which you might want to consider, is just percent of observations that were, I don't remember what the 4 categories are, but exceptional, whatever the 4
Oh, yeah, proficient.
proficient, right, needs improvement, right. So that's one possible measure that might give a sort of general arc of the evaluations that you might want to consider. The other thing I was going to say, and this goes back to the success measurement, is I think if formative and summative are blended together, it'll be really hard to measure year on year, and formative is so dependent of the relationship, but I think summative is probably the key evaluation we want to measure.
Well,
Right.
in this case, what formative means is it's depending on the cycle that a person is on. So if a person is on a 2-year cycle, at the end of year 1,
Okay.
they get a formative evaluation. Which
So these are still the formal evaluations
Exactly.
that they get, not just like a check-in evaluation that we might think. Okay, great, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, we're going to go to Jesse, and then we're going to think about taking a vote on the goals. So Jesse, and then we'll. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question in goal 4. Towards the end, you mentioned to ensure inclusivity, the budgeting process will actively involve historically underrepresented groups, ensuring their input is reflected in decisions. Equity will be prioritized, which I read as inclusivity as well, by allocating resources to schools and programs serving high-need students. So the first time I read that through, I see high need reflecting back into the prior sentence, basically historically underrepresented groups. Is that what was meant?
Yes.
So my question then comes back then, or a comment that you made earlier in the discussion tonight, where you said also the students that are high achievers. So I reread this paragraph, and I said to myself, what you probably meant was equity be prioritized by allocating resources to schools and programs serving. So high need is on both ends of the spectrum, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it needs to be a little clearer, because it could read as a continuation of the prior sentence, which is historically underrepresented groups, but actually, the sentence could stand alone. I mean, even if you didn't have the one beforehand, equity will be prioritized by allocating resources to schools and programs serving students from if you want to focus on historically underrepresented groups, but at the same time, the whole echelon of students who are high achievers, and you want to provide them with, phenomenal challenges, let's say. Those would also be, I think, high-need students, I think.
Yeah, and that's sort of what when we were talking about the MTSS aspects of the work,
Yes.
because it gives students multiple access points to come in sort of where they are and take them at the next level. And we also see some of that with some of the assessments that are being utilized as well, so.
Well, I think it's just, I would just say as long as it's clear that it is, that equity here means both actively involving decisions that impact historically underrepresented groups for sure, and high-achieving echelons of students for sure as well.
Okay.
On both ends.
Yeah, I'll make it clear.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move that we accept these goals. Thank you, Mariah. She did a second. I'm ready to take a vote. Jesse?
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I have a discussion point, but we just responded, and Dr. Guillory said he was going to make some changes. So.
To the draft.
Why don't we vote it and look at the changes, and we can always.
He can send them out, and you can send him additional feedback if you wish.
Or we could, or you could bring it, if you vote in the positive, you can always vote to bring it up.
You mean
Sorry,
docket?
I'm not
You
following.
mean to docket re-reviewing?
We just gave feedback, and in several things, Dr. Guillory said that
But
he
it
would.
wasn't, I didn't believe it was substantially changing the goals.
I agree.
Yeah. So if you can't vote for it, that's okay, Carolyn, but.
we were voting not as presented, but as.
To be, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So not the words, but the goals.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is yes, but with, what you said, as discussed.
As discussed, we made suggestions. He said,
Okay,
sounds
fine.
good. So we're sort of assuming those will be incorporated, maybe not word by
Thank you.
word, but in.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just, maybe if I can't say
Yeah.
so, I had one question from the last time we discussed this that I didn't see here.
Okay.
May I?
We'll hold the vote. Go ahead.
Okay, so I believe, Dr. Guillory, the last time we talked about this, I think I asked a question about how come there's not a goal about curriculum or even as a subset of it, literacy. In other words, these are internal district communication I got, it was sort of central office and getting to people, the budget, of course, supervision is of staff, and coherence, I understand. But I thought that there was a gap in the space of curriculum/learning. So is there space for that, or do you see it?
I see that as
Under
goal
something
one. That's my whole, that's the work that I do in terms of supervising schools. And you see quite a bit of that work that's already happening in the Office of Teaching and Learning as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll try take two. Okay, we're going to vote on this as moved by Mariah. Seconded by Mariah. I moved it, that's right. Jesse?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Now, what everybody's been so patiently waiting for, sorry that we're running late.
Just a question, do we have a timeline for when the goals will come back to us? Or not, they're not coming back to us? So we won't see them as modified by the discussion?
Yeah, he can send them out, yeah.
What's that?
Yes, how much time you need to do a little modification? Dr. Guillory?
I mean, by the next school committee meeting? I don't know, something, 2 weeks? I don't know.
That seems to me
Or
a little bit overkill because we do revisit them, halfway through the year and everything. Do you?
Oh, okay.
Why would you want to see them because you'd like to further edit them? Because we will be updated right at mid-year point when we
Right.
address
We'll
this
look at them again.
Well, I guess I was thinking, okay, that's fine. If there were things that in nuance didn't get captured, it would give us an opportunity to correct now rather than in some months down the road.
But we do that mid-year as.
Okay.
So we do a
Sure,
touch.
no problem.
Touch on them.
I'm a newbie at this.
Yeah, I know.
First
It's all
time.
good, it's all good. Okay, we're going to take a look at the school calendar. If you remember, was it last summer we had this, we started this conversation. We're looking at the 25-26 school year. It's not next year, it's the following year, so we have time. If we don't get it right away, or if we don't make a final, we don't have to have a vote tonight, is what I'm suggesting. We've certainly had a lot of input today, so
It is next year.
No.
it's not,
25, 26. This is 24.
Oh, it is next year.
oh, it's next year?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sheesh.
gosh.
Time
But I
flies
thought
when
we
you're having
already
fun.
voted 20. Didn't we vote 2 years?
We did, but this one got delayed.
This one got delayed.
Right. It had issues with it.
No,
Just
okay.
next year's.
You're right, that's what was confusing us.
Yeah.
So we don't have as much time, but we do have
We
some
don't,
time.
I think we need to do something very quickly because people make vacation plans, people, figure on things.
I know.
I
Okay.
wouldn't wait to do this.
I am going to open up the
And I would
floor and let people.
suggest-
Okay,
Can
go
I ask a
ahead.
question?
Sure. Wait,
But I was going
Helen
to
was
suggest
saying
something
Uh-huh.
that we might want to think about, in the next month or so to do the following year. So we do get on a 2-year
Mhm.
and then have, just add a year then every time.
Yep.
Rather than,
I think that's being asked for by our families, yeah, that's
it
very
really
good.
helps families, I think,
Yeah.
to know
Okay.
what's going to happen.
People have been asking me where this one is.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Okay, Mariah, did you want to say something?
My question is actually for some of the members of the audience. Hagar, I think you said that you wanted one, you said at least one. And which one were you asking for? Was it?
We would really like to.
Yes.
I think you need to go to the mic, I'm sorry. Because otherwise people.
I just wanted to get clarity because there was different messages and I just wanted to make sure I understood what the conversation or what the requests were.
So I think the Muslim community would really like to have 2 high holidays recognized. But I think we are open to having a phased approach where maybe we do one this coming year, 25, 26, because I marched out the calendar in the following 5 years. There are multiple years in which one of the holidays falls on a weekend or an existing holiday. The only one that does not do that is 25, 26.
I see.
So I think what would be a good compromise would be to include the first holiday, which is Eid al-Fitr, which follows Ramadan, which would fall on March 31st, I believe. It's March 31st for this year. The
March
following year,
20th.
the March 20th would be 2026.
That's what we have on here.
And then for the following year, incorporate both.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Okay, Stephen.
So I'd like to propose moving Eid al-Fitr to a Category 1 holiday on this calendar. And I'd like to bear in mind our discussion from the workshop where we agreed that it's not a good idea to continually add to the calendar and push it beyond the 3rd week of June. So I think we should be looking to look to remove a day also. So I also want to suggest moving the I'm not seeing it all of a sudden. It's Good Friday. I want to propose moving that to a Category 2.
It's April 3rd.
To a Category 2 holiday, and keeping our end date the same.
Go ahead, Mariah.
I'm on board with what you said, except I don't believe in Category 2 holidays because I think they're like the worst of all outcomes where it's not a full, I would prefer to have a day taken as a Category 1 day where we then, I don't love adding days at the end of the year, but I do want to have a day that is a full day of school as opposed to a day that does not allow educators and students to take advantage of the full day. So that's, I guess, like, I'm not sure I want it to be a Category 2 day either. I guess I'd rather just have it be a day, or a Category 3 day, I guess, should be the option for Good Friday.
And that works out really well because it's always Friday.
That's true. There's something to be said for that. But yeah, I generally agree with that. I just wouldn't make Good Friday Category 2.
I fully agree with your sentiments about Category 2 days.
So, but with Category 1, no homework will be assigned in. Well, I'm just reading what I see here. No instructions. No homework will be assigned in any class for all students on the last day of school before Category 1 holiday. No assignments, projects, presentations, or other assignments cannot be due until at least the second school day after the holiday, even in the case of a longer school vacation. The same policy applies for the administration of tests. So I'm just not sure, does that sort of, how does that fit with your concern?
Well, my general, I mean, honestly, like, I'll repeat what I said at the summer thing. I think we should be not doing all of the holidays. With that, I understand, because I'm concerned about the extension of the school year. I'm concerned about not really having a definition for why a holiday is included or excluded. However, I was really fixated on numbers earlier, and then is Faiza still here? Yes. You said earlier, equity is not in numbers, and I wrote that down. I appreciated that, so thank you for saying that. I'm struggling with it all, and I kind of want to get rid of all holidays, and also I feel like that makes it really hard for for a lot of people to participate. And how do we make it easier and more joyful? How do we incorporate holidays as a part of the life of the school and celebrate them and educate people about all the different holidays? So that's my tension.
Yeah.
But I think at least trading a Category 1 for a Category 1 sort of feels net neutral.
So to what you just said about having no holidays, I do want to go back to the conversation that we had. Was it in the fall?
The summer.
Summer workshop. So, and we also have two members who aren't here, two important members, the chair and somebody who expressed a strong opinion about this, which was also to have no holidays. So I just want to sort of note that. I'd also like to note my recollection of Dr. Guillory's contribution to that conversation, which I found really helpful, which was that he brought anecdotal feedback. I believe it was from principals. And my understanding of that feedback as characterized was that there was concern about adding holidays in terms of academics and what it does to the school year. I mean, we have a great town that's incredibly diverse, and we have a lot of ways that we acknowledge that we are inclusive. Our school calendar is an expression of what we are providing academically. It's interesting to me to see in the context of this conversation, like that Easter, I don't know if there was always this link. Well, there's a couple things. First of all, just graphically, it's incredible how much more real estate the list has than it used to. And now we click on something that takes us to this explanation of the 1, 2, and 3. And I was struck by the fact that Easter is included as a Category 1 holiday on a document that tells us when school is in session and not. And obviously, school is never in session on Easter because it's always a Sunday. So that just got me, that sort of underscored something that we talked about, or that I'm thinking about as I look at this. And it's the concern that this document is starting to express something, that it's moving in a direction of doing something other than what it's meant to do. And that might be oversimplified, but the inclusion of Easter, and there are people in my family who celebrate Easter, so this is nothing to do with what's on the list or what's not on the list or competitions between everybody, but it's a lot. And our school district needs to have a robust system of delivering education. So it concerns me if I don't know if the conversation about holidays being acknowledged and inclusion and equity is really exactly the same as the calendar as a functional document.
Sarah?
We did have a conversation recently about not having holidays, religious holidays off. And my understanding, in order to try to kind of like streamline this process a little bit, is that we didn't decide to do that yet. And I think sometimes I feel like you need to say out loud what everybody understands and doesn't say. So I'm just going to say it. One of the reasons why we didn't get rid of religious holidays when we had that conversation is because the Christian holidays would be protected and the Jewish holidays wouldn't. And I don't believe that right now in Brookline we are going to stop taking the school day off for Jewish holidays. So I thought that that was kind of a decision that was sort of made. And so now we're at the point, in my mind, where we have a school calendar in front of us where there are going to be religious holidays on it. And the question for tonight is, should we add one? And so I'm very comfortable with Stephen's suggestion, because that's sort of like the work I've already done to get here.
Yeah, go ahead, Helen, then I'll say something.
I'm going to show my ignorance. What happens on Good Friday? And I'm looking at you guys because I
was the one who confused Good Friday with Ash Wednesday.
Oh, that's a problem. I know Ash Wednesday, you get the...
It is a somber Christian holiday, a holy day.
I mean, I know what happened on Good Friday.
Yeah, I know.
It's not, that's not the question.
So,
It's more...
I would be reluctant to just swap. I just...
It gives the wrong message.
I just don't, it seems wrong on many levels to say, we'll take one from you, but give one to you. I mean, I don't think we're trying to do that. I also am reluctant to change the Good Friday category until, again, we get some input in some ways. I mean, just to do that across the board when it's been there for years and decades. It doesn't mean I couldn't agree to do that, but I just feel like bringing it up for the first time or the second time tonight, I am not ready to do that. I am ready to figure out, or to give it back to Dr. Guillory, just as my vote would be to say, yes, let's add a day. We can do that. And if it puts us over an extra day, it puts us over an extra day until we figure things out. I mean, maybe we're moving to something like, this would be heresy, fewer vacation days in February or April. I mean, that's trying to think outside the box, but we're not ready to do that yet.
We talked about it last time, too.
Well, there's ramifications around that, because you've got staff who have children in other districts, and, people count on that. So, but I'm just saying, anyway, that's my point of view. I would be glad to add a day. We could give it back to Dr. Guillory and say, please find a day. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is. It's an extra day. You add it to the end of the year. That's what we always do. As long as we're done by the 30th, we're okay.
No, the 30th is not okay.
Well, legally, we can go to the 30th.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go to the 30th, Carolyn. I don't want to go to the 30th. I was a teacher for years. I still work in schools, so I don't really want to go to the 30th. But I'm just saying it gives us, we can add a day. Yeah.
Just to say, if we do that, people leave. That means that we have every single day that people don't come, right, is 7,000 kids. So two, that last week, the 29th, 30th, I'm just saying, that's 14,000 student days that are gone. So I do think we need to be super thoughtful about that part.
I'm willing to go with what we think we can do to add a day.
So
I'm just for that.
I would
Let's
like...
see, Helen, then Sarah, then Jesse. Then
There's
Stephen.
one possible opportunity,
Carolyn.
and I'm not sure if the administration would like it, but the Professional Development Day on the 4th of November, there's no election this coming year. Could that be moved to the 11th? And then it's the 11th of November yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I grew up, we didn't have Veterans Day off, so I don't know. And I'm not sure if we have to have Veterans Day off or not.
Federal holiday?
Okay, let's throw some.
Do we have to have federal holidays off?
All the federal holidays, I don't think, or maybe we do. and I don't know.
We may have to
We
send
have
this
to
back to
have-
Dr. Guillory.
We have to have.
Dr.
them on.
Guillory, do you want to
Dr.
jump
Guillory?
in?
Well, I was just to chime in on what Helen was saying that, and I think the legislation has recently changed that says that the federal holiday has to be observed on the day if it falls during the day of the week, as well. So
For Veterans Day, it's the only one, I think, and
Yeah.
July 4th.
I think it was Sarah, then Jesse, then Stephen, then Carolyn. Sarah.
Remember that your kids are off.
Just quickly, we also have, we were talking about different possibilities. The possibility of starting the school year earlier is another possibility.
That's contract issues.
Stephen? Jesse's next? Jesse, then Stephen, then Carolyn.
Yeah, I just have I guess a comment. I'm a product as an Orthodox Jew of the public school system as well, not in Brookline, but at public schools. And growing up, the awareness or realization that we were going to miss up to 13 days of school, depending on how the Jewish holy days turned out in the year, was present for myself and my 3 siblings and other friends of ours in the Orthodox community who attended public school with me as well. It was just, you knew it. You knew you weren't going to be in school. It didn't really matter what happened. You had to deal with it. I am not saying that to affect the outcome of this discussion. What I'm saying, though, is that even, I'll give you an example. So last Friday, my grandchildren were walking past Hayes School, and they were dressed up a little bit nice. And some students, it happened to be around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and some of their friends, or upper kids a little older than them, walked over to them and said, why weren't you in school today? And they said, it's Rosh Hashanah. And the kids said, that was yesterday. So they said, no, this is Rosh Hashanah today, same as yesterday. And the kids had no clue. So they talked about it. They're 5th graders, right? And they continued on their way. And when they got home and they told us the story, it was fine. It didn't move the needle either way. It was fine. I mean, that's exactly what you'd expect to happen. Someone would come over and say, why are you dressed up so nicely? Why you weren't in school today? Well, it was Jewish holy day. The same thing happens even in the current calendar for all Orthodox kids throughout the system from K through 12, is that next week, Thursday and Friday, they just won't be in school. And the following Thursday and Friday, they won't be in school. And the second day of Passover, they won't be in school. And Shavuot, late May, early June, the 2 days, they won't be in school. So you can miss like 13 days at the maximum if these don't come out on a weekend. There is a decision. I'm not going to call it a sacrifice. A decision you make in terms of the in-class instructional learning you're going to miss or lose, if you want to look at it that way, by observing your faith in the public school system. And so I think and at the same time, many Jewish parents will tell me, how come we have so many days off and PD days and everything else that cuts away at the calendar? So I certainly don't want to advocate that we should add lots more days. I think we need to find ways of providing more instructional time rather than less. But for people who have to make a decision that goes to the core of who they are, that's more important than education. I mean, that's education from your family, education from your faith. That's rock solid. There's no alternative. If you put yourself into the public school system, that's what's going to happen. Other kids in other parts of my family that go to parochial schools, it's not a problem because all those days are respected. So I just think that we need to be aware of the fact that adding any days takes away from instructional time, but at the same time needing to respect the needs of our diverse community. So it's a tough thing to decide how to do, but be aware of the fact that for any of the Orthodox kids in the district, they're going to miss. It's certainly positive that there are 2 or 3 that are represented when they don't come out on weekends. But there are 10 to 12 more that they're taking off anyway because there is no option. And so, and this, just to make a comment about earlier, does not include Hanukkah. It's not even in the same ballpark as a holiday. And so we're talking about, biblically sourced holy days as compared to things that transpired later in history. I just wanted to make sure we understood the dynamic there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stephen? And then Carolyn?
Thanks, Jesse. I guess I just wanted to offer the rationales that I'm using for thinking about this, rather than specific tweaks to the calendar. So I'm following two basic rationales right now. One is that I'm really disinclined to push the calendar further into June because I think it's getting hotter. Climate change is making it less and less feasible for us to go further into June. And in that same category of rationale, I'm mindful of how Mariah was treating the idea of living within our means in the budget book. I think here on the school committee, we all have a weakness to want to add and not subtract. So I'm trying to be mindful of that and not propose something without paying for it at the same time. So that's my first rationale. The second rationale is that I think the way we've treated calendaring in the past is by looking at category 1 days based on days of low attendance. And I think that's an insufficiently inclusive criterion for determining category 1 holidays. I recognize that by pulling back that rationale, days of low attendance, we're opening it up for, we talked about this at the summer workshop, for any number of proposed ethnic, cultural, religious, and other holidays. But I don't think that's a reason to not have a more inclusive criterion for category 1 holidays. And certainly I think if we have Jewish and Christian category 1 holidays, we should also have Muslim category 1 holiday. I'm comfortable proposing, although I'm certainly not wed to proposing Good Friday as the day that would compensate for adding Eid al-Fitr, because in this rationale, it seems to me that each of these major world religions should have major holidays representing them in the calendar. And as long as they're well represented, it seems to me that we're fulfilling an inclusion rationale for category 1 holidays. So I wouldn't want to get into the weeds on the solemnity or the holiness of any particular holiday. I would just want to make sure that each of the religions is represented, as long as we're deeming religion to be something that we want to use as a mode of inclusion in the calendar. So I'm just offering that as a way of thinking about this, rather than trying to propose any particular way of solving it. If there's another day or a consolidation of PD days, Dr. Guillory, that you think is preferable, I certainly defer to you on that. I only meant to propose Good Friday in the spirit of trying to pay for what I wanted to buy. Sorry for the mix. Just trying to balance the budget of the calendar. Thanks.
Carolyn? Thanks. And my mic's not working.
Here.
I can't hear whoever's talking.
Okay. It's Carolyn. Hi, I have a mic now, thanks to Helen. So just to respond to what you just said, Stephen, so again, and this is not a moral or ethical or document or exercise. I'm not sure if this list from the link that you click on from the calendar now, click here for the overview, is a policy. But so, Stephen, it's like, I love you. I listen to everything you say. And you're saying if religious inclusion is the rationale we're using for category 1 holidays, then, but I'm not sure that, I haven't heard that as a decision, and I don't read that here as the rationale. And maybe we need to have a separate conversation. But and this I think was part of what we covered in the previous conversation, was that right now we have something that says Category 1 means absences by staff and students impact the ability to conduct classes on this date or during this time. And then there was a conversation about low attendance, whether we had data that really supported even our current days of low attendance. Again, funny that Christmas, which is a federal holiday, and Easter, which is a Sunday, are included in there. So that just seems a little perplexing to me, and maybe could use some clarification. I'm not sure that the adoption of Lunar New Year, I wasn't part of that conversation. I don't know if that was data-based in terms of low attendance, and we had it was, okay. So we had data that students were not coming to school.
My recollection, I wasn't on school committee, was because Lunar New Year is not necessarily a religious holiday, and it impacts the Asian students who celebrate it, which are 19% of the school population. So it's a different.
Yep. And that I totally get,
data.
and I remember the conversation about why many people wanted it off, which is different than whether we have evidence that students are choosing not to come to school on that day because it's that important to them. And I think to some extent what Jessie was saying sort of applies there and ties into what Val was saying about scorch the earth, let's not have any, separate church and state. If you don't want to come, you get an exception, et cetera, et cetera. And then I just would also say my takeaway from our summer conversation, and I'm not proposing what Val talked about, and I'm not sure where I would land on it, were we to have a whole robust conversation about having no holidays. My takeaway was not that that was a resolved conversation, but that we sort of said like, ooh, this is hard, let's come back to it. And here we are. And again, with respect to our chair and Val, who's an important and veteran member, I mean, I would almost say like, maybe we don't vote this calendar tonight, but figure out what the conversation is that we want to have. That's a separate conversation. So those are just a few thoughts that I hope are helpful to the conversation.
I would agree with you that I don't think it's time to vote it. And I think part of what you got at, Stephen, too, is that, and that you're pointing to, Carolyn, is that the definitions of what makes category 1, 2, 3 are not right. But also, I wonder if part of the how we've structured, like what can happen near a category 1, near a category 2, near a category 3 is perhaps too extensive. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity to rethink some of those things, especially if we're thinking about what defines a category 1 or any of these holidays. What defines a day that we don't want to have school? Then, you know, and if it's not about X percent of the school being missing but wanting to celebrate, then we make space to celebrate without completely disrupting and the sort of while being able to address the concerns of the principals, which is the disruption of the school year. And so how we can continue to make space, so maybe it's that we don't have homework the night before or one of the nights, but that we can still have tests, you know, like within 2 days or something like that. I'm just thinking of how we can make it to give space for people to celebrate without putting an entire pause in a school for those days. Because we do want to be able to have people to have time to celebrate and also continue to be students, right? So it's both of those things.
And sorry, Sarah, I know your hand's up, but for those of us with children in the high school, and I think this is what you and I sort of agreed on last time too, I mean, it's a little distressing how often kids come home saying, I don't have homework, it's a holiday. I don't have homework. We don't have any homework this week because it's a holiday. So it's a lot. And so I think trying to balance all of those needs is important.
We'll take Sarah, and then I think we're going to wrap up the discussion for tonight, because I don't think we're going to have we're not going to have a vote tonight. I'm sure of that. Sarah?
I really don't want to go against what you just said, but I'm going to say, I think we could have a vote tonight.
Oh, really?
Because I think that it takes us a long time to figure out that we might not have religious holidays anymore. And I'm very willing to have that conversation with everybody, and I would be somebody that would support it. But during this time, while we still have religious holidays, I believe that we should add in an additional one. And so I wondered if you would, and I really respect your leadership, Suzanne. I wondered if you would consider us having a vote on this now, with the understanding that we do have a lot to still solve.
So I would consider a vote to add the one day and to send it back to Dr. Guillory to figure out how to make that work.
And sorry, I have a question that I had from the very beginning. When you said this is on the agenda, adding a Category 1 holiday is not on the agenda unless that's implied in this draft, which does not have Eid as Category 1 holidays?
Well, so it would be, we would actually, I guess, kind of reject this calendar and ask them to come back with another calendar that would have this holiday on it.
And I'm like, I was authentically confused because I didn't see that.
I don't feel like it needs to. I mean, this is the calendar. That would be a decision within the calendar, right?
I don't know.
I don't think that it would need to cite.
Voting on X and
Yeah.
this is Y.
Is it possible that we vote to add the holiday and ask this, because we are sort of behind the 8 ball at this point, that we make this decision for this year and this conversation goes out a year?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Can we just ask for Dr. Guillory's feedback before we
Sure.
do that to see
Dr.
if there's any
Guillory?
guidance you have for us?
So, very enlightening conversation tonight, for sure. But what I was more intrigued in hearing is, given sort of where the committee was in August, and based on the feedback that the committee received tonight through public comment, what would be your pleasure in terms of driving this? I mean, I think the thing that I have a lot to say about this, but I think the thing that I'm thinking about is what I think Mariah was just talking about, sort of the amount of real estate right now that Category 1 takes up. And I think Carolyn was saying this in terms of the impact on high school students, sort of this notion of because it's a holiday, therefore I don't have these particular assignments. I think figuring that aspect of it out, but it doesn't need to be settled tonight, but that's something that I do want to keep on the table. And I think Stephen sort of suggested, or several of you have suggested, this notion of re-looking at the definitions of the various categories as such. But I'm happy to take the calendar back if it's the will of the body to add the Eid holiday and bring back a draft. And I think early in the spring, what we'll do is bring back, probably February or March, bring back the calendar for 2026, 27, just so that we can get a running start on that, so that we can get back to having our 2 calendars on the books. But I really appreciated the public comment tonight, as well as the discussion that the committee has had, because again, I certainly don't want to impose my educational experience on those that are here now, but there wasn't a weekend where there was a holiday of some sort that I didn't have some project or something to do over the course of that. But again, the notion of the impact of not being able to give assignments or not being able to assess And again, there's some reasons, so I can understand why the previous administration probably put those stipulations in place, because it could be a sense of overlording or giving too much stress onto the students or families. But I think we just have to really look at this as an organization and redefine it. So I'm happy to take this calendar back and figure out how might we incorporate the day if that's the vote of the committee.
Linus, oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That was it.
If we were to vote this calendar with Eid added, would that work for you? Because you wouldn't have to take it back. This one would be done, and then you could turn towards the questions that we've raised for the following year.
Well, what I would have to do is, I think procedurally, we send the calendar over to the union to give them a reaction period or time to it as well. So this current version, the union has had, they wouldn't have had one with the Eid day in it, but contractually that would be a procedural step that we'd have to take, and I'm happy to have that conversation with the president.
So it would have to come back to us anyway, you're
Yeah.
saying?
No. He takes
Well, I
it.
mean, if you vote it,
We
but
vote it.
We could vote it, and that could happen after. It doesn't have to happen before. Okay.
yeah, because I think what would make sense is for you to send it back to me, let me send it over to the union, give them their period to review it, and then bring it back to you in short order for a vote.
So do you need a vote tonight, or you just need the direction that we would like you to add the holy day, the holiday?
Go ahead and vote it, and then what I'll do, because I still have to find the date, you don't have the date, so you still need to come back and approve the calendar. Reapprove it as such. Just do it that way.
What dates don't you have? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I'd have to actually identify the specific day where it sits on the calendar.
Wasn't it already there as a category 2?
March 20th, you have the date.
I mean, it's already listed in the calendar, it's just not
What I'm saying
categorized.
is I have to figure out what I might be taking away. I mean, I can just certainly add it and bump it out.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, so
Exactly
what I'm-
that question, that the difficulty I would have with voting it tonight is that you have already committed, and I agree with you, to analyze the calendar and make some kind of other adjustment. And so we shouldn't really be voting on it until we see what your proposed adjustment is, because the committee might have a problem with the way, with the options you give us on how you might want to adjust it.
I assumed we were just rolling it out to the 22nd as the last day.
Oh, I
So
see.
that was
I
my
don't know.
assumption.
I
Right,
don't-
exactly.
That was my
Who knows?
assumption,
Yeah.
because we mentioned
Surprised.
doing it for this 1 year.
Okay, let's just give it back to Linus then. and be
Yeah, I
done
think
with
we've
it.
worked better with nuance and complexity when we don't have votes, because, we can't address all the different issues unless we do a series of votes. But with the understanding that that some members of the school committee are saying we would really like to see Eid on this calendar, let's resubmit it to the superintendent. Is that okay?
And vote it or not?
And not vote it.
Not voted. Well, he told us not to. Okay. Okay. Okay, so,
You have to put your mic on.
Yeah, I think where we landed is that Dr. Guillory agreed to promote Eid al-Fitr to a Category 1 and come up with a way of making potential adjustment, and then bring it back, let's just say, at our next meeting, which is certainly plenty of time for next year, to vote it, to review it, discuss it,
yeah.
and vote it.
So I would like us to vote it.
And hopefully have, to Carolyn's point,
I would like us to vote it.
Andy and
But
Bowser as well.
but we still have a chance to vote the whole calendar. But I would like us to vote for Eid to be a Category 1, at least for next year.
So moved.
But that's not on the agenda. I mean, I'm just being, adding Eid as a Category 1 holiday is not on the agenda.
I think
Discussion
that-
and vote of the calendar is on the agenda. And I'm going to say one more thing, and this is, again, not about, I'm a fairly secular person. This is not about one thing or another. We'll be back here having this conversation again next year, and the year after, and the year after.
Well, we're going to try and bring it up, as we said, February, March, and have a lengthier discussion about this. And perhaps it even goes, do I dare say, policy or something, to look at the categories. So it is going to be.
There'll be another
and that's
addition that's
Yeah,
lobbied, and another, and another, and another, as long as this
So we,
I don't think that this
department,
vote
sorry, I'm just
actually-
going to finish. As long as this is being treated as an expression of something other than when we have school,
okay.
which is
So
where
I'm
we're
thinking
going.
that as an amendment to the school calendar, we make this vote, and then we send that to Dr. Guillory for him to come back.
Yeah.
So it's an amendment to the calendar.
Also, I don't think it actually matters that it's not on the agenda,
Well,
because
if
it's,
those who it does.
I'm just saying, actually, I don't think it does matter, because there's not a decision being made around that it hasn't already been expressed, so.
So I'm going to suggest, we have that on the floor, the motion on the floor. Yeah, Helen?
So our next meeting is the workshop?
Yes.
So we would be voting it then?
No.
So I really think we need to vote the calendar. I'm sorry. It's not fair to families.
Well,
you
we're
know.
going to try and do it. We're
And
trying
we
to-
can, and, you know, right now, we can vote a calendar with the 22nd being the extra day, and then if we decide to change it, we'll change that one day. But I think people need to know when the calendar's going to be.
I think the problem with that is that still leaves open uncertainty for people.
How? One day?
Yeah.
Well, you're talking, it'll be next one is October 30th, the next meeting. That's the end of October. That's a year.
What are the parts,
All right.
sorry, I'll try and talk loud. Do you mean?
No, you can't.
Thank you. Is your concern, Helen, with sort of first day of school, last day of school? Because the big holidays are set by the federal holidays that fall in them, right? So first day, last day, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well,
But Helen, I think that Linus said that he needs to go back to the union anyway before it can be officially
Yeah, that's.
finalized.
Right.
So I don't think that, I appreciate their,
Change it as long as we're within the contract. It's the courtesy of showing them the
right, but I don't
calendar.
think Linus can promulgate it to the community as official until he has that confidence. I would presume, Linus, you wouldn't want to bandy it about as final, should there be a concern.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I've seconded your motion.
Right. What's my motion?
Your motion was to express to the superintendent the school committee's desire to add Eid al-Fitr to the calendar.
That's it.
Well, to upgrade it to a Category 1.
Yes, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, it's just changing it from Category 2 to
Okay, so we're going to
Category
take a vote. We're calling the motion. Jesse?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes, and I have other comments on the calendar.
Oh. okay.
Sorry, I
Well,
know.
let's do this first.
That's a long,
Helen?
Yes.
Carolyn?
No.
And I vote yes as well.
My other comments,
Okay, before Mariah, before you go,
yeah,
just Suzanne, Betsy, tell me what we just did there, just so that I'm clear.
Go right ahead. You got it down, right? What did we?
we said to, basically, we were just directing to you, Linus, to just add Eid to the calendar or to shift it from Category 2 to Category 1.
Okay.
And can I go ahead with my other comments?
And then, so Mariah has some other comments.
Just general, this is like,
Sorry, that was Eid al-Fitr.
yes.
Eid al-Fitr.
Yep. Generally, my other comments are to sort of clean up. Some of them say things like school closed, and some of them say things like school, that don't say school closed when it's still a school closed holiday, I think. I could be wrong, but I feel like there's a couple which don't say school closed, and maybe I missed it.
Professional Development Day.
Yeah, or something, like, exactly, like school, it just needs to be super clear when school is closed, because some of them,
Yeah, November 4th.
yeah, and some of them say Category 1 and Category 2, and other ones don't. And then, this is me harping on my perennial harping of things, which is, I just want to confirm that any day we have an early dismissal, it's because there's actually an activity happening that day that requires early dismissal for those grades. So, for example, like pre-K through 8 early dismissal on November 12th or 6th or 20th, these pre-K days, is there pre-K conferences? I know those got added. I just want to make sure that like those students, if they're missing, this is my harping on every hour is 7,000 hours, right? So if there is no, I don't want them just to get lumped into K-8, just as one example, just because, but there's no conferences happening or anywhere here. Like, I want it to be super clear that if there's an early dismissal, it's because something is actually happening. So maybe that's universally true, but last time we looked at this, I think we still hadn't merged the pre-K timing and schedules in with the K-8, and I just want to make sure that now they're absolutely, we know what's happening.
That's good.
Yeah.
Stephen?
I just wanted to comment also, Dr. Guillory, and maybe Suzanne, that it also seems to me from this conversation that there's a lot of openness in the school committee. Please correct me if I'm speaking for more than myself, incorrectly speaking for more than myself. There's a lot of openness to a clarified definition of the categories of the holidays. Maybe that's a school committee conversation at some later date. Maybe that's. Yeah, maybe that's a conversation with the principals. Maybe that's a conversation at policy. But I think that would be that seems to be another follow-up step.
Jesse?
Just a question, I guess. Did we said this was for the vote we just took was for 25-26 calendar?
Yes.
Okay, that's all it was.
Yes.
Because I'm just concerned that this is published live, so the world's watching, and then it gets represented in social media as Brookline now has this. I think it's pretty.
It does.
It does, but it's for 1 year. I mean, until the next calendar. In other words, we didn't vote that this is a permanent holiday going to the 26, 27, the 27, 28, or is it? I just want to be clear.
I don't think any holidays or no calendars are published for a future year.
So that
Right.
okay. So just so that I'm clear, okay, maybe so we will assume that all the things that are in the calendar here, just the dates on which, the days in which they fall based on the calculations of when they show up, will all project into the next year too. That should be our working assumption now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
That's historically been.
Okay, good. Because there was some discussion earlier about it being for 1 year.
Sorry, just for clarity's sake, my assumption is that the vote which we just took carries forward in perpetuity until it's changed by a subsequent vote.
Okay, good. Okay. I understand. Good.
That's correct. I mean, that's how I would build future calendars based on that.
Thank you.
Carolyn?
Dr. Guillory, in terms of this question of this religious and cultural observances, the document that's linked from the calendar that defines the categories and lists them, I don't know who creates this. Is this language from our policy, or where does this come from, and who, like where this is dated 5/17/23? Not trying to put anyone on the spot, just trying to understand where this comes from in terms of future conversations.
The best expert to actually answer that is sitting to your left. But
Okay.
But
the wording.
But this originated, Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong, under Dr. Lupini's time, when we were looking to start, when the system was looking to categorize the days. And so this has been sort of just carried over each year with updates. And so the conversation tonight opens the door to start redefining those types of things. So I think it's going to take a broader look. It's not something that's just going to be quick and easy, because again, we really have to think about the intent and the impact and how this lives and breathes within the organization as such. So, Betsy, did I miss anything there?
I think I have a working mic here. So I will check with Kathleen just to be sure that that's the most updated. And really what it should refer to is all these holidays were categorized this way as part of the homework policy. So the superintendent at the time, to address concerns that were coming in from families, we're trying to, we've got these holidays. This is really the administration of the homework policy.
Okay.
So that's why it's all that.
So is this in our policy manual, Stephen?
No, so I think there's a policy about there's a policy about homework, but then the administration was charged with,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. So this is sort of like a working document that's connected to the guidelines connected to the, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've done a lot of hard work tonight. It's now 9:40.
An hour and a half after.
I know it's going to be early. That's okay. We can decide whether we want to hear about subcommittee and liaison reports now or not.
I have a couple of
You have a couple of important things, okay. Okay.
I just have dates.
Okay, okay, so let's, if those, everybody can stay, can stay.
It'll be like 5 minutes.
Okay, that's good, and we'll get you on a 5-minute.
I just
timer.
I have two, well, it's really one important update, which is at finance at our last meeting. Thank you for staying so late. At finance at our last meeting, we started a new process, which would be pre-approval of grants, and the idea would be that pre-approval of grants, rather than grants being approved after the fact and us having some sort of question or whatever that becomes an irresolvable issue, we have the chance to pre-approve them, and that way we can put our inputs in before they go to the sponsor. And so we had this for 2 grants, I think, at our last finance meeting in whatever, September. I know, my brain's turned off at this point, yeah. And it went pretty smoothly, and we'll still work out a couple of the details, but that's generally the idea is we would pre-approve them, and then they just come to consent agenda for the full committee unless there's some sort of substantive, like say for example, they submit a grant for $100,000, it's only awarded for $50,000, and they need to modify the scope of work, it would come back to us for a reapproval. And then the staff came back. Yes, go ahead. Well, I'll say the staff came back last week and said there's times where we have grants which are time sensitive, and can we have a process by which they get approved off cycle? And I said I would go to the school committee to seek their okay to approve off cycle and then report back to the committee, like what we do with the accounts payable. So they would basically email me and I would give them the okay, and then I'll report it out to the committee. In the meantime, we already had one come in this week, and so I sort of just did it, and I want to, but it hasn't been submitted yet, so we've still got time to, because they needed, yeah, anyway, so here we are, it was yesterday. And I just wanted to give a quick report out, if that's okay. So it was a grant to this, a grant funding being requested from the state for $100,000 to support the MTSS work as well. And about half of it was being proposed for a subcontract to Suffolk University. And I'm so tired at this point, I can't remember what that was for anymore. But it was
For PD.
No, so it was for, you're right, it was to develop the PD. They were developing the PD, and then the other half was essentially funding to enable educators to participate in the PD by paying them workshop rate or whatever their relevant charge was. And the comments that I gave back to staff were concerns about sustainability. If we don't have funds for workshop rate in the future, how do we continue to sort of engage teachers or educators in this work if we don't have that fund? Sort of making sure that this was a sustainable program, because we don't want to develop the PD and then not be able to have people access it. So having them think about if there was ways to improve that. And then the second thing was a required portion of the grant was to have partnerships with community-based organizations or other local education authorities, and they did not have that in there. They had a partnership with Suffolk and a partnership with 2 private companies. So they weren't actually, in my interpretation, compliant with the requirements of the grant. So that's the update. But in general, I still need to
You
get.
approved it.
I said it's okay, but I just want to give you these 2 I wanted to give them the feedback of, I think that we would, the school committee generally would want to make sure we're sustainable, and I thought that they were not compliant with this specific requirement. This is what I do for work, right? So I like read
Yeah, I
through this
know, I
stuff.
know. I wonder how you can work with another educational entity for this sort of thing.
You could, but it has to be a local education authority, or, something like, Brookline Center for Mental Health might be or the Brookline, there's like different programs that might be community-based organizations. They did not have either one of those in the program. So anyway, that's my update, but generally I'm hoping to get the okay from the committee to when they're off cycle like this and can't wait to be able to approve them, and then I would report out just the way I do with the accounts payable if there was anything. Okay? Is that any objections?
Do you need a vote?
I have no idea.
I think we need a vote to authorize the chair of the finance subcommittee to approve grants that are time sensitive.
Pre-approve, yeah, or approve grant pre-approvals or whatever.
Yeah, to pre-approve grants that are time
Yes.
sensitive in order to be able to maximize our ability to get grants.
I second that.
Did I say that wrong?
You got that, Betsy?
Well, let's vote it now, and if we need to re-vote it, we can re-vote it. Yeah.
It's under
Could you,
new
could you repeat
business.
the motion? I
She's
don't-
letting the chair of finance be the person, just like the chair
When
of
it's time
finance who does it
sensitive.
for accounts payable. When it's time sensitive, they have, like, this person in my role, this role has the ability to approve the grant application on behalf of the committee.
The grant application?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So, and as with, and we talked about this at finance, I like this. Maybe I'll abstain, and I'm only saying this because it's my understanding of OML, is that if it's not on the agenda, like that specifically votes aren't supposed to be taken if they're not on the agenda. That's my understanding of OML. I'm not an expert.
Well, we were
I
just saying
want,
we
I
can re-vote
obviously
it, too.
support this. I
Yeah.
just,
I didn't
that's why
understand
I'm
that
bringing
earlier
it
when
up.
it said possible vote. Why were you saying that it wasn't on the agenda?
It's almost 10 o'clock. Can we not get into
Okay.
it? Thank you.
Because that's how things are noticed, discussion and possible vote.
Well, as
That's
long as
the
there's no
boilerplate
objection, I'll
language.
take that as an okay until the next time we have a noticed vote. Okay. I don't care either way.
So, Betsy, we could post that for. Yep.
Yeah, no, it-
Oh, yeah. I eat grapes for lunch, I joke I don't get out of bed in the morning for less than $1 million. Helen.
Sure. So, a couple things. First of all, there's a Pierce School Building Committee meeting on Tuesday where we will be voting. The reconciliation actually was happening today in terms of the two estimates for 90% documents. The reconciled budget should be posted soon. I know that the Building Commission will be meeting to discuss it, and I think it's on Tuesday also. I hope it can't be at the same time, but the Building Committee needs to submit it to the Mass School Building Authority. So all that will happen, the approval of this reconciled 90% documents and budget will be submitted to the MSBA. That doesn't mean that's the number that will eventually be, because it will go out to bid, and then we'll know for sure what the market is and where things are at, though I've been told that the market is looking good, much better than it has in the past, and that bids have been coming in under estimates, but I'm not holding my breath yet. So that's on October 15th, Tuesday. On October 24th, we'll have a capital subcommittee meeting. And one of the things I was thinking is we may want to have, in the past, we've had Charlie come and report to the school committee about summer work with pictures and stuff. I don't know if he or Sarah could do that this year, just because, well, I think they probably can. So we might want to ask them when, I know Charlie's just back from, a sick leave, but maybe when he's able, or Sarah's able, they could come and report to the school committee in one of our meetings. And the last piece is the Preservation Commission approved unanimously the friezes as being historical artifacts. And so now it's on to writing a grant, which my favorite grant writer, to the CPA.
Okay, Can all the other committees?
It's under a
for less than $1
It
million.
can wait.
Can I say a small thing?
Yes,
I just
Stephen.
want to give a quick preview of the policy subcommittee docket because I don't think we're going to meet again before then. Just want to say we're going to be reviewing parts of Section J, attendance policy. I could sense the excitement in the room already. The student code of conduct, but what I really wanted to promote is that the Climate and Sustainability Task Force is going to give their first readout of their recommendations. The subcommittee readout is going to be more of a workshop where they're going to be looking for feedback, and hopefully there are going to be a few of these, possibly in curriculum also, possibly also with some civil society groups before the full school committee presentation docketed TBD. So I just wanted to hype that to the school committee. That's it.
And I just want to announce, just to the public at large, that Indigenous Peoples' Day is Monday, and there is a really nice-looking program, a celebration. It's 1 to 4 at the Brookline Health Building, and it includes crafts and goods and free food from Native Kitchen. And our own Dr. Sevelius is speaking, as well as some other people. So just to pass that on, if you're in town. And with that,
Oh, I have a new business, if that's okay? Can we do new business? I just thought of this when Stephen was giving the policy update. I feel obliged, as I've brought up other things that we've heard from the community about, and I heard from somebody a second time about this. And sorry, I just got to go back in my memory. I did write to the chair and vice chair a couple weeks ago with language that was suggested to me by somebody on the town side. We've had some inquiries, especially following recent incidents at the high school, about surveillance cameras. We talked about this a tiny bit. I'm not pro, con, but we've had questions that have been sort of circular when I've inquired of like, how do we even have this conversation? Town, school, town meeting, select board. So I had asked the chair and co-chair, vice chair, if we could docket for a future meeting a discussion and possible vote of recommending to the select board that they reconvene their committee on surveillance technology. So just wanted to put that out there as a possible way that I've been thinking about responding to that request from the community to just, like, where they go, why don't we have cameras? And I don't have an answer, and nobody seems to have an answer, so thanks.
okay, fine. Okay, that's it. You are now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Nice work tonight.
Thank you, Linus.
Recording stopped.
Good night.
Rest up, Linus.